And we have nothing to report out from closed session. And I also will share our vision and mission, which is every student receives engaging and challenging learning experiences to reach their greatest potential and thrive in a diverse global society. And our mission is FBUSD delivers exceptional, engaging, equitable, and collaborative learning opportunities for all students. And may I have approval of the agenda?
I'll move to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Seeing no opposed, so moved. Public comment on non-agenda items. Do we have, I will read our blurb for disclosures in person. We do have in-person folks this evening. So individuals may address the board on agenda items on both regular session agenda during public comment and or time they are under consideration by completing the speaker form provided on the table at the entrance and submitting to Renee, our administrative assistant. Public comment are limited to 3 minutes per individual, 20 minutes a topic. Speakers will be chosen in random order. Each person may only speak once per agenda topic and is required to address the board from the podium. Public comment cannot be acted upon or discussed by the board unless placed on an agenda at a subsequent meeting in accordance with the Brown Act. The board may request staff to respond orally at the meeting or in writing at a future time. A total of 20 minutes public comment per topic will be allowed. And if you require translation services, please contact Renee at the district office 72 hours in advance or by phone or email. The meeting is videoed and broadcast on FBUSD YouTube channel. And we also have virtual and public disclosure for those that are watching us on the YouTube channel. Members of the public who wish to address the board during the board meeting are asked to please submit prior to the start of the meeting by emailing boardmeeting@fbusd.us. Staff will make all attempts to share and record any submissions received prior to or during the board meeting. However, depending on timing, late submissions may be provided to the board after the conclusion of the meeting. So, do we have any public comment on non-agenda items?
I have 2 email comments on
Whoa.
non-agenda items. Are there any from the audience?
Okay, so we will allow, and so I will read further our disclosure of the following public comment we received from the districts using the public comment email address. The following public comment was received by the district using the public comment email address. For ease of public participation, it will be read into the record by a district employee. This should not be construed as an endorsement of this comment by the district or as the position of the district.
So this first email was received on March 14th. Because we had a special meeting on the 14th, this email was not allowed to be read in public comment because it was a special meeting and only agenda items, only public comment on agenda items could be read at a special meeting. I forwarded you this email that night so that all of you could hear it. Because it was sent to the board meeting email, we're compelled to read it out loud into public comment at the next regular meeting. This email is from Brian Burkhart. Dear FBUSD School Board, I would like to comment on the decision of the school board to end the mask mandate and the letter from Superintendent Walker announcing that choice. While I understand we all have the desire to return to normal, and I personally don't have a huge concern about the end of the mask mandate given our current decrease in community spread, I feel the comments made at the meeting and the logic used to defend the decision reveal a failure of leadership in our schools. I'd like to start by pointing out the California Department of Public Health guidelines the board chose to follow clearly state that indoor masking is strongly recommended for everyone because universal masking lowers the risk for everyone more than isolated masking does for those who choose to mask. Yet the letter from Ms. Walker announcing the policy change never once states this fact and instead seems to ask everyone to avoid the topic of public health entirely. Leadership is not about letting everyone do what they want without any guidance. Our schools should be teaching our kids the well-established scientific facts regarding masking and urging people to take simple steps to protect each other, not hiding from the issue. Many of the comments from the community when addressing the board also showed either a lack of understanding or a lack of concern toward others. Lots of talk about personal choice and freedom, but almost none about responsibility to the community and the fact that those who choose not to mask are increasing the risk for everyone, including the many members of our school community who are unable to vaccinate and or at higher risk. In similar health matters, chickenpox, measles, etc., the school requires all those who wish to attend campus to take appropriate and proven measures to reduce the risk for everyone, like mandated vaccines. COVID should be no different. At the very least, our schools should recommend the safest course of action, even if they feel they can't require it. Ms. Walker and the board repeatedly talked about how this has been a contentious issue and how the anger and personal attacks they have faced have been hard to deal with. With this decision to not just end the mask mandate, but to present the new status quo where every choice is equally valid and the schools take no position on masking, contrary to the CDPH guidelines, it seems like the school board feels relieved to simply walk away from the issue and let the loudest, angriest voices win the day. The danger in this is not only the poor example it shows to our children, but the fact it will not reconcile our community. When case counts start to rise, they already are in Europe, and masking becomes the responsible choice again, it worked so well for us up to now. I'm worried that we will be right back where we were a month ago, and I'm afraid our leaders won't be ready to make the necessary tough decisions to protect our kids. Sincerely, Brian Burkhart, Redwood parent. The next public comment on non-agenda items is from Elizabeth Willis. This comment was received on Thursday, March 17th. Is my child going to be able to be picked up by the bus now? We live 2 miles from school. Not having a bus to pick up my child has caused hardship for me and my child. It has affected my job, and my child has been late. I need a bus to pick up my child. We live too far for walking daily. I see children can go to school without masks today. They should be allowed to ride the buses now like they did in the past. My son has taken the bus in our area since kindergarten. I don't understand why the school district refuses to help me and my family with safe transportation to school to further my child's education. Please help. And those are the public comments on non-agenda items.
Okay, thank you. And nothing submitted, okay. So our next item on the agenda is patriotic exercise, led by trustee Mattson.
Okay, I am combining autism awareness with patriotic exercise this month. April is Autism Awareness Month, and I thought it would be appropriate to show a short film on the topic. Many people have heard of autism but may not understand that it's a developmental disability that is found to be ever increasing in its occurrences. Not many years ago, the number of cases of autism were 1 in 150, and now they are estimated at 1 in 50. These numbers are expected to rise as more is understood about this condition. There's a saying in the autism community that if you know one autistic person, you know one autistic person, meaning it manifests itself in many different ways, even though there are some common traits that can be different. You can find many short videos on traits of autistic people that will help you understand some of their challenges. Be aware and, when possible, be inclusive. That's not the video.
Is that good? That's not it?
It's not the video.
This isn't it?
That's not it.
Okay.
Might be fine, but it's not the one. Yeah, the one I had was like 2 minutes long.
Okay.
Can you find it, or is it?
Maybe it's shorter.
Are you sure this is not the
It
one?
is really hard to explain for me because I've never really experienced being a normal person, because I did that in quotes because, well, let's face it here, there really is no such thing as normal. It can be a lot of
Let's see.
Wrong video. We're going to
Sorry.
find the right one.
Yep.
Even though that was a super interesting one.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I'm trying to find the link that you
Not to put you on the spot or anything.
Sorry,
I've had that happen as well, that there's just a more condensed version of
I
a
watched it.
similar video.
You may end up watching it after all, isn't it?
You sent it to me a while ago.
But if nobody's watched it,
I will bring it to the
I usually I see it.
Person.
Then probably I'd have to have an adapter for the adapter.
This one. Okay.
Got it.
Okay,
It's only 2
thank you
minutes
for
long.
your patience, everybody. Here, let me see if I can.
That's not it either.
This is an ad.
Oh, okay. Keeper. There we go. I know, calm down.
What is autism?
Autism is a developmental disability?
Autism is a developmental disability.
Difficult disability.
I don't know.
I would say someone that is kind of to themselves, someone that are sometimes afraid of different lights and sounds.
So about 50% of every individual with autism doesn't have a job.
I would assume it's pretty high, but I'm not sure of the exact number, but I'm assuming that's high.
Estimates show that between 70 and 90% of autistic adults are unemployed.
That seems unfair.
Did you know that it was that high?
I did not.
Yeah.
And I think they still the same chance as everybody else.
Say maybe 70%? I don't think I know that either.
True or false? Autism is the fastest growing developmental disorder in the United States.
True.
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 People are always able to tell if someone is autistic simply by looking at their physical appearance.
False.
False. False. I would say false.
False.
Autism spectrum disorder affects people of all races, ethnicities, and socioeconomic groups.
True. I think true.
True.
And the final question is, true or false? 3.5 million people in the United States are on the autism spectrum.
True.
I would probably say true. True? True?
True.
And by the way, myself and the entire production crew is on the autism spectrum themselves.
I did not know that. The world can treat people better with autism by treating them like they're normal.
Thank you.
Thank you, Renee.
Yeah, thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Next item on the agenda is acknowledgements. Superintendent Walker can walk us
Yes,
through.
acknowledgements. This month is Autism Awareness Month. Autism Awareness Day was April 2nd, 2022. National Child Abuse Prevention Month is this month. National Bilingual Multilingual Learner Advocacy is this month. National Poetry Month is this month. It's School Library Month. April 22nd is Earth Day. April 27th is Administrative Professionals Day. And then the board acknowledges the...
own 1 square foot.
Sorry.
That's fantastic.
So
I now
sorry.
own...
I'm sorry.
square
We
foot.
have new technology in this room, and it's challenging me.
The board also acknowledges the following donations. $1,000, Zachary Jones for the ASB boys basketball team at Fort Bragg Middle School. $500 from Matson Building Materials for Redwood Elementary Autism Program. $100 Sons of the American Legion Sequoia Squadron number 96 for a flagpole on the softball field at Fort Bragg Middle School. $100 from Jasmine Zartman for ASB soccer at Fort Bragg Middle School. $100 from Anna Zarate for ASB soccer at Fort Bragg Middle School. $100 from Sandra Buenrostro for ASB soccer at Fort Bragg Middle School, and $1,000 from the First Presbyterian Church for Anchor Academy Student Pantry supplies. Thank you to all our generous donors.
Great. Next item is communications. Does anyone have anything to disclose?
Just the letter from the tennis community.
Same here.
Okay, yeah, so we received the use of tennis courts, which spurred discussion with staff, and it looks like it's on our agenda this evening for fees and procedures. And I received an email providing information about a virtual presentation on the Expanded Learning Opportunity Program. So I don't think anyone else received that, but I can forward it.
And just under communication also, President Paoli, we received several thank you cards from the AVID students who went on college trips, and they were excited because those were funded through our supplemental and concentration dollars, and we were able to budget that through your great work with our LCAP. So if you'd like to view the cards, I'm going to keep them here, but they're very incredibly sweet. So
Thank you. I knew a couple kids that went on the trip, and they did have a fabulous time. Public comment. So we have agenda items.
we have one comment on agenda items, and that is the letter that you all received. It was also sent to the board meeting email address. And the letter reads, Dear Fort Bragg Unified School Board, regarding tennis court use by the community. This is a follow-up to March 10th, 2022 public comment opportunity to express the desire to share the high school tennis courts between the school and local tennis community. The tennis community is frustrated by the district's unexplained resistance to opening the courts for responsible community use. We would appreciate the chance to discuss any concerns the district might have regarding access to the courts by the local community. We are committed to careful stewardship of the courts if we are granted utilization during non-school hours at Fort Bragg High School. We have responsible parties who have been previously employed by both the school district and the county sheriff's department who would help manage the use. The city currently has only 2 public tennis courts that are heavily used by both the tennis and pickleball community. During tourist season, there is an increased demand for public courts. This is the reason we are asking the board to expedite a dialogue with the local tennis community about utilizing the school tennis courts as soon as possible. The tennis community would like to have club use of the high school courts placed on the agenda for the April 21st board meeting. If the board could direct the principal activity director to determine the conditions of tennis club use of the courts, we could develop a proposal that meets those requirements. We would comply with the request necessary for the local tennis club to use the school facilities and keep them safe. Local tennis club use would ensure that the courts have responsible parties both protecting and using the courts during school time off. Active adult physical exercise helps to not only promote lifelong learning and health, but also helps to monitor the courts when school use is limited. Having the courts actively used by responsible parties should help to reduce vandalism, and a double lock system could ensure that the courts are protected. The tennis community is dedicated to the sport and would passionately protect this public asset. In conclusion, we hope you will consider this request with great expediency. Placing this item on the April agenda could ensure the courts were available for use before tourist season. We would also be sure to meet all district requirements to the benefit of the school and local community. Very truly yours, Fort Bragg Tennis Community, Representatives Beth Schraber, Deborah Bieber, Mary Kay Champagne, Windflower Townley, Teresa V. Estep Contact.
Great. And before I move on, do we have anyone in the public that has something to say during public comment agenda items? Or we could save it for each item once it gets we move down the agenda. So the next section on the agenda is reports, and there's 7. So I'm hoping everyone is informative and concise and engaging. So this evening we have student representative.
All right, thank you. I'll have my board report begin with, can you hear me okay? Mm-hmm. Okay. Want to make sure. I'll start with Redwood today. At Redwood, they thoroughly enjoyed the Spring Carnival, which was hosted by the high school on the 8th of April. And she says, thank you in all capitals with multiple exclamation points. Mm-hmm. Teachers are guiding students through the 3rd and final iReady diagnostic assessments for ELA and math. Also at Redwood, the Parents Club meeting is Tuesday, May 3rd, both online and in person. And Catherine Bernsdorf, the school counselor, is hosting the 3rd parenting night on Thursday, May 5th. At Dana Gray, April 26th through 28th, they will be having their 2nd trimester awards assemblies, which will be in each class, and each ceremony will be broadcast on a video link shared with the parents. The 29th of this month will be the Day of the Child, where the whole school, including parents and families, are invited to move along with the classes through some stations and see some aspects of culture in Fort Bragg, where students get to do games and art activities. This event was developed by the Dana Gray ELAC Committee and Dana Gray Parents Club and parent volunteers, and Mr. Kale would like to give a big thank you to all people involved. The third iReady assessment has begun within the classes. All Dana Gray classes have recently completed field trips to the Noyo Marine Science Center and are beginning field trips to the lighthouse at Point Cabrillo. And the CASP end-of-year testing is happening in the second and third weeks of May at Dana Gray. From the middle school, the wrestling team had a good season, and softball and soccer are in full swing. And Mr. Chimolino wished for me to read off of this flyer for student athletes. It says, the Mendocino Coast Center Pediatrics Office is booking sports physicals for June and July for next year's physicals, so the exam is good all year long. And you need to bring a completed sports history form to the visit. You can get one online at your school's website because they have limited appointments in August. They want people to go during the summer to get that. And at the high school, on the 26th of April is the WASC virtual visit. On the 28th is the AP Honors and College Class Information Night from 5:30 to 7. And on the 30th is prom. And that is my report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
And please feel free to excuse yourself at your discretion.
All
So we
right.
love your report, and if you want to listen and become more informed, stay, but we understand you have obligations.
Yes, I've got to get started on some AP studying for that.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Next item for report is construction projects update.
Don Almeida is in Mendocino at their board meeting right this minute. He is hoping to be here soon, so if we could hold that and move it down until he arrives.
I would think that would be fine. When he comes in, he can make public comment and report. So we will move to Three Rivers Charter School mid-year.
We have Kim Morgan here from Three Rivers Charter. She's the director. Welcome, Kim.
Thank you. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Okay, give me just one sec to get acclimated. This is the...
It should
How do I
work
go
if you
back?
point at that one too, but
Oh.
yeah.
How do I go backwards? This is
Use the
middle.
roller on top. I think you can roll back and forth.
Yep. Thank you.
Yep.
Let me just rewind.
Did y'all get that? Did y'all get that?
Very concise.
Best report ever.
Ta-da. Backwards. Okay. Thank you for having me, Kim Morgan, Three Rivers Charter School. I did try to make my presentation engaging. I added pictures this time. We have a new website. We're happy to report. Same web address. This is the home page. I hope y'all will check it out. And I'm starting with a few snapshots from around campus. We just had our 2022 Science Fair, which traditionally is an evening family event. This year, the students all did their presentations in the tent, and the other classes came through, and we prepared a virtual version for the families. We're starting our field trips again, walking field trips. The 7th and 8th graders went on a whale watching cruise in the harbor. Students have been to the mini golf place and on walkabouts to Hare Creek Beach, and we're excited to be doing those things again. Our 7th and 8th grade art committee painted a mural this year. So this is 2 plywood panels of the osprey, our mascot. And during our Spirit Week in the fall, all the students put their handprints around it. And we funded through our parent teacher network, our Booster Club, t-shirts for everyone. And so this image is going to be black and white on the back of all the t-shirts. We're excited about that. They're supposed to come Friday. Friday is our spelling bee. We're also excited to have that happening again outside in the tent area. In the top left corner, we have assemblies each Friday, or REACH assemblies. Respect, empathy, achievement, citizenship, and hard work. There's just things happening around campus. Keyboarding lessons in the 3rd and 4th grade classrooms, students in the garden, some of our support staff working in small groups. You've seen most of these numbers in my first report this year. The only thing that has changed is we went from having 9 students on long-term independent study because of COVID that are now back in class. We're down to 3 long-term independent study students, which is fabulous. Our enrollment for next year, we had our lottery on the 7th. Our goal is 97. We're only at 85 this year, so we're hoping to grow. And this table shows by each grade level the number of seats available and how many are on the wait list, which we have enough on the wait list that if it all, once it all shakes down and everyone's enrollment forms get turned in, it's looking like we'll meet our goal. And most of our openings are in 1st and 7th grade. The 5th and 6th grade is totally full, and we're working on processing that. Take a minute to look at my notes and make sure I said everything I planned to say. So the benchmark assessments that we use is the Northwest Evaluation Association's MAP assessment, the Measures of Academic Progress. So we're doing it 2 times this year, and I showed you the data in the fall. And so these next slides will compare the fall and the spring. We have 4 classes. The older classes, the 1st and 2nd grade classes just finishing up their first round of taking it now that they're fluent with their Chromebooks. So this shows the 3rd and 4th, 5th and 6th, and 7th and 8th. There's 3 sections: math, reading, and language usage. And kind of the overall picture, you can see this is 3rd and 4th graders. The red color is the low scores. The blue on the right-hand side are the high scores. So as I flip through these, the overall picture that it shows is that the red is getting smaller and the blue is getting bigger, and that's what we want to see. The teachers have more, aggregated concrete data to drive instruction. But yeah, in the math scores, we're pretty happy to see the growth, the red going down and the blue getting bigger. For us, because we're such a small population, this is often 1 or 2 students that we're talking about. For the reading scores, the same. And the language usage scores, pretty much the same. One other way we're looking at this data is looking at the yellow, green, and blue, which are the scores we want to see. The average, the high average, and the high, and we compared for each class in the spring and the fall if that percentage of scores increased or decreased. And again, it's 1 or 2 students in either direction moves that bar. But generally, some of them are going up, some are not, and we can use that to drive our instruction. We took the CASP last year, so this is Mendocino County's 3rd through 8th graders, which is actually only 1,001 students. So for what it's worth, this is our CASP scores for last year. They did it from home virtually. This is ELA compared to the 3rd through 8th graders in the county, and math, 3rd through 8th graders in the county, which is not very many schools because it's 964 student scores for all of those grade levels. So for what it's worth, we did the CASP last year. I've told you about our programs. Here's some photos. We have a reading intervention, counseling, breakfast, and music program happening still. After school programs, our sports program has been running. We're pretty happy about that this year. We're about to do a round of Ultimate Frisbee as our 4th and final sport. Homework club runs every day. Tides after school program, and we actually collaborated with the Noyo Center's Sue Magoo, who some of you might know, to offer a Friday afternoon fantastic fun Friday program as a pilot, and so we offered it just to 3rd and 4th graders this year, and almost all of them did it, and it was fantastic. It stopped moving forward. Oh, there we go. Oh, it skipped one.
Our internet's been lagging today, so
It fast forwarded for you.
try scroll back. It'll go back.
It'll go back. the budget. Here's our second interim. Our financial outlook is good. COVID update. Did I skip one? No. We continue to test weekly. All the students coming back from break, we just tested twice this week with no new cases.
Great.
We had one person report from over break that had COVID, but we continue with all the protocols. Masking is strongly recommended at our school as well. Hand washing, filters in the classrooms, eating outside, nightly janitorial. We are going to offer an extended school year summer program that we're working on developing right now. It'll be 3 days a week for the 4 weeks after school gets out. 3 mornings for enrichment and academic support offered to everybody. We are working out how we're going to serve school meals, breakfast and lunch. Currently we do breakfast, and we're looking at options for lunch and drilling down on that to meet the state mandate. Our facilities, we continue to work with Mendocino College. We're developing a proposal to renovate the facilities that we're in using our funds in exchange for a longer term lease. Our lease is signed for next year, so we're good until June 2023. No outstanding legal issues. Oh, it's that board.
Bruce, can you tap that board, please?
We're still fully bound to our insurance until July 2022. No suspensions or expulsions this year. And again, our lease is signed to stay at Mendocino College through next year. Any questions?
Does the board have any questions?
Looks good, thank you.
Kim, thank you. You've done a great
Concise
job
and
as a
engaging.
director.
Yes, exactly.
Concise and engaging.
Thank you.
Oh, and I want to thank Becky.
Oh.
Just thank you for all your support this year. And I hope that our next superintendent is charter friendly, and we look forward to working with that person. So thank you.
You'll be just fine. You
Great.
do a great job. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
and I'm
everyone.
happy your location is secure for another year.
Hopefully longer.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. So the next is student benchmarks data presentation, and we will start with Fort Bragg Middle School, presented by Principal Laura Vieira.
So there's a hair trigger mouse somewhere.
It's been exciting today. Stand by.
Did you mean to take it away from me?
I did. I know. I'm sorry. I'm so mean. Not that one.
Well, in the interest of everybody's time, I'll just start talking, and then the slides can catch up. So we, both the secondary team met with Kelly Smith yesterday in the high school library, and so they started looking at our third iReady benchmark that we administered I think we ended right before we left for spring break was when our testing window, we completely tested. I think we had a few stragglers. Overall, we've shown growth since our first benchmark. And our teachers looked at their data. They made plans for how they're going to finish out the remainder of this school year with 8 weeks, 7 weeks remaining, and then started making plans for what they're going to do for next year to support student achievement. So with that, the action plans are in the slides. There we go. Are in the slides. They look very similar to the ones that you saw in the second benchmark. But it is updated information. All of the teams work together with the high school department and then screenshotted what they did. And actually our teams are the ones who put it together. I think something to note is that at the end when we were debriefing in the library, Kelly Smith said, I'm left-handed. This will feel weird. I'm going to move it over here. Okay, let's see what happens. Okay. So what Kelly Smith said at the end of our training was that I wish your school board could have been here to see you all talking about student data, how you're going to adjust and monitor your kids to improve delivery with student engagement and then in terms of student achievement. So our humanities team, actually, they're the team that had the most growth on the third benchmark. So they have a pretty comprehensive action plan. I'm just going to scroll through everybody's plans really quickly and then get to the end to talk about what we're doing as a site. Math, they also went through and looked at all of their data. They actually have, okay, that's weird. Why does it? It's not moving. Oh, okay. Wow, Kim, how'd you do this? Okay, so, okay, I need to move more slowly. Okay, well, so anyway, there was the math one. Then our PE is doing the California Fitnessgram, and then our science department, so they have an action plan as well. Our science department, they're fortunate in that, or maybe not fortunate, but their test banks are in Illuminate. So they actually, as part of their analysis, which is not in the slides, were able to look at our subgroups. And we just learned yesterday that we're going to be able to do it, I think, with all of our other subject matters, that we can move iReady information into there. So there's our science action plan. Overall, the key tenets that we agreed to are that we're going to continue focusing on the same standards for the remainder of this school year, with determining the meaning of words and phrases as they're used in text, and then also with our math practice, modeling with mathematics. And we've all agreed to continue with the student engagement strategies that we've been working on with Kelly Smith for the last couple of years. So AB partners, appointment clocks, under the surface questions, question trees, and then also it's called Give One, Get One. For next year, the plan right now is to continue on the same track so we can look at our data and see if we've shown growth. Which again, let me restate that we have shown growth more so in reading, and a shout out to our 6th grade team. On their second benchmark, we had 33% of our students at or above grade level. On the third one, they jumped to 59%. So they are head and shoulders above everybody else. Although 7th grade is right behind there at 50, and then 8th grade, we're at 32% that were at grade level. And then math, which continues to be a challenge for us. We're not quite there yet. But overall, that's our plan for the remainder of this year. And then they've got a great head start for when we reconvene in August for next school year. Questions?
Great. Anyone have questions?
Will these be put in our folders? Oh, they're there now.
They're
okay.
here.
They weren't here
So
earlier.
we will.
Okay, good. Thanks.
We appreciate the similar format and the continuity, and also know the timeliness that this is like hot off the press. I mean, you just worked through it, and to have it coincide with our board meetings, we really appreciate everyone's.
We were strategic. Well, we weren't. Our superintendent was strategic in that.
Yes, proactive. That's wonderful.
And actually, to be perfectly honest, my plan, well, Bruce, surprise, I mean, we haven't talked yet, but is to continue the same format with our iReady benchmarks when we do them. It just, we need to build capacity and become more familiar with it. This is the first year we've done it this way, but it's timely, and it gets us used to looking at our data and then sharing it with you, so you know where we're at and what's happening in our classrooms.
Right, and then you're comparing similar,
Apples
from
to
one
apples.
exactly. So that instead of that never gave a meaningful presentation because it didn't quite jive. They may have made improvements, but it was a different, benchmark. So this has been great.
Well, and what I started doing is I'm following the cohorts, because we did iReady last year, and granted that most of that was in distance learning, but we can see that progression over time. So like next year when I talk about our 7th graders, it will have their 6th grade information. And I wonder if we can get Dana Gray. That part I haven't looked at yet, but when they're at the middle school, we're following the cohort,
which is valuable.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. So our next is Fort Bragg High School, presented by Bruce Triplett, principal.
Thank you, everyone. We better look over here. This one wasn't going as fast. So I will just kind of give you the end. You guys can look through all the slides, the data in there. I think I'm going the wrong way. There we go. So I just want to give you some key points, which was interesting. Like, talking yesterday in with everybody there in the library, it was great to just hear the conversation. So it's English, they had their benchmark, and we don't do the iReady. We just do our benchmarking class, and they're working on common benchmarks amongst all the English department, and they noticed that their scores went down, and the great thing is, I think in past they would just look at the numbers and okay, let's we'll do it next time, it'll be better. But they're looking at their scores and they're saying, what did we do wrong? And they noticed that some of the wording that they used in their test and the questions kind of messed the kids up from what they were, than their scores, because they were doing well on their essays, but then they would look at some of the questions and it threw the kids off. So the analysis they're doing is just great to listen and hear. So you can see that the numbers did go down a little bit, but I think they figured out, they redid their benchmarks and understood what they did wrong. So it was good to hear those conversations. And then I think they're looking at they looked at their data, but I think they're looking at it more closely now, which is great. The history, they've been working on common benchmarks, which before it was just, by class, and there wasn't a lot of discussion because it's kind of hard to discuss something when you're the only one teaching it. So they have been really working hard with Kelly Smith in creating common benchmarks for all grade levels, and it's great. Again, they're collaborating with one another, and it's great to hear. The math as well, same thing. Sometimes they have a couple of algebra teachers and a couple of geometry teachers, but a lot of them are singletons, and it's hard to collaborate when you're the only one doing it. And so I think sometimes those conversations that you hear when you're working with someone else, they're not there because you're working with yourself. So again, you'll see the conversation, you'll see in the document the things that they're writing in there, and it's great. They not only are doing, I think they're doing 3 common benchmarks they're working on for next year, which is amazing, and it's a lot of work. And not only this year with Kelly Smith, but we have a WASC year, and we have that next week, and so it's been quite a lot of work that they're doing, and but it's great to hear those conversations. Science, same thing. They were noticing on their benchmark that students weren't doing as well on particular things like graphing and things like that. So they've been talking with the math department on how they can maybe do some collaboration next year on some graphing, and maybe work when math's doing something, the science can do at the same time. Mm-hmm. So they're working, also looking at their labs when they can, how they can address their labs to have more data where they can graph their data. So I think overall the information, they're discussing it more, and I think they're looking at it a little closely because of the structure that they're going through. So it's been great hearing those conversations. So I didn't really go through all these, but again, the end result was, again, like Laura said, Kelly she just wished that we could have snapshot the conversation, because everybody debriefed back in the library, and it was only 30 seconds, but just the information, the things you hear them talking about, it's been beneficial. So I appreciate the structure we're doing this year more than we've done in the past. I think in the past it was just a exercise, like, okay, let's get the information for the board report, but now it's meaningful, and it's much better.
Great.
And just so the board knows, when we organized the data analysis, we organized the data analysis around the board meetings. So it happened yesterday because the board meeting's today.
Yeah.
So we did it in a way so that the information the board was getting was live and current, and that our staff understood that the information is important, and it's not a dog and pony show. We're not just going to go through it, that this information is meaningful, and we use it to inform our instruction. So it's been a great year watching our teams work with Kelly on data analysis, and for our teams to really take it to heart and work towards improving that data. So it's tricky coming back after a COVID year when kids have been home. Our team has been working really, really diligently, incredibly hard, and I think all of us can agree we're proud of the work that they're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, excellent. I mean, I'm looking at right now some of the comments, and it seems like the structure is allowing the comments and the time, to pause as, with their colleagues. It said too many multi-part questions. Well, that's not a fail. That's just, okay, we we've tried to smash in so much and we're going to adjust it. So that's, investigating and adjusting accordingly to support the kids. I mean, that's exactly what learning and education is all about. So thank you for everyone's efforts. Does anyone have any questions?
Nope, I would just echo that. This has been so nice because obviously the staff really appreciates it and has been able to buy in wholeheartedly, and it provides us such a great picture of what's happening, and thank you for finding Kelly Smith.
Yeah,
she's pretty great.
I think I commented at a prior meeting, but it'd be great to hear from Kelly at some point.
I did invite her to the May 12th meeting.
Great,
Oh,
okay,
great.
perfect.
So-
Thank you.
Thank you. Great.
All right,
Thank you for the reports. And you as well. I don't know, I'm actually, our only employee is superintendent, but you may exit whenever you need to. So our next item on the agenda is Superintendent Report 8.51, Flockworks Art in the Schools Update.
So we have Joanna Wigington here. And Ariana, sorry, the mask. Hi, Ariana, how are you? Please come to the podium.
Well, they'll be very entertaining because we're so old school. We don't even need the clicker. You are the clicker.
You are the clicker.
Well, the first thing we're going to give you, because exactly 2 years ago, we were all set to do this Children's Day, and bam, everything shut down. We had actually ordered a lot of physical stuff to give the kids, including the hashi, which they'll get at one of the stations. So, the brownout last night fried my printer.
Oh, no.
So, guess what you're getting? A handmade poster. Do you remember this? So, you can pass this around because you're all
Great.
welcome to come to
Great.
International Children's Day. I think Dana Gray used to do something like for a whole week and do international stuff, and so they were thrilled that we're trying to bring that back. So please come if you can. It should be a lot of fun. It's going to be 8 stations, and it kind of tells what they are there. And now you're getting your next little handout, and because I'm who I am, you're getting touchy-feely. It's because when you read the teacher survey in here, you won't know what they're talking about when they talk about a pedal book unless you get a pedal book and see what it's all about. So you can open your pedal book. And
thank you.
You are also getting a squash book. Do you need one more? You guys can.
Well, sure.
You got one here. So those are a couple of examples of things that we're offering teachers and students. So it's been a couple of years, huh?
Yes.
So when we shut down, Flockworks had to just shift on a dime. And we went from supporting Norma Trejo, who can't be here because she takes a college class on Tuesday and Thursday nights. And we went from being in Dana Gray, many hours a week. She saw every student every week, to what are we supposed to do now? And the first thing we did is create 800 cloth bags that we silk screened to send home that were filled with supplies, student supplies. And it took 2 flatbed trailers to get them all to the school. Little did I realize what 800 bags, how many pencils, how many clipboards, how many journals, what the volumes. I had no clue until the boxes started arriving and filled up 3 rooms in a building that we were borrowing. Anyway, it was an exciting thing. Then we went to sending home about every month a project in an envelope. And community support was great. Trustee Matson, I called him one day and said, we're thinking of a project that needs masking tape. And he didn't even say what do you need masking tape for? He said, how many? I said, 400. He said, pick them up Tuesday. Okay. So in went the masking tape, the flashlights, and it was to create a shadow puppet theater. And some of the kids are still making them and using them at Dana Gray. Anyway, we're now back in the building in kind of double time. Norma's still there. Because we haven't been able to hire somebody for another about 10 hours a week for Redwood, I've been there quite a lot. And the big change this year, thanks to Superintendent Walker, is that we get the first 10 or 15 minutes of every staff meeting. And we go in and do demos, like the pedal book. Those pedal books have been used at Dana Gray ad nauseum. Some teachers have used them once or twice a month, putting a character in the center and then 6 attributes of the character. We gave them 3 templates, so you can do 3 sizes. And you can go, oh, underneath that, what's underneath that character? What's behind that? One of the teachers did the branches of government. Well, that's the branch. What do they do? Layer 2. What does that come out to be in real life? Layer 3. So it's been really exciting to share an idea with the staff, do 2 minutes of brainstorming where you have people brainstorm and then just go for it. It's been great. Following that, we talked to the people at Redwood, and we're now going to all their staff meetings as well. The specific ask there was for SEL support, which is social emotional language. And we can see, I've been around the livestock for many, many years, and I can see the challenges and the damage and what COVID has brought us. So the first thing at Redwood, we gave everybody a bag with real clay in it so that every kid could have their own clay, because there's a lot of support for the kinds of materials that support social emotional learning. So it's been a couple of years. I think one thing COVID has brought us in a positive way is that the arts, the visual arts, as well as certainly music and drama, are essential. They're not optional, they're essential. And our movement has been, it's great to have Norma there because she demos, she responds, but the position is really an arts integration person. And I hope you all get a chance to read the results. We put out a survey for all the teachers, and the comments in that, actually my daughter was reading them and she burst into tears, that teachers were so grateful for the kind of support. And it's relatively little money. One teacher 2 weeks ago said, I really need markers and colored pencils and glue sticks. Is that asking too much? I said, we'll bring them over tomorrow because we have those in supply. Anything we don't have in supply, I've got a budget through Hudson Foundation, through private donations. The school provides this last year $5,000 to split between the 2 schools for materials. So a teacher who wants a specific thing for a specific science project, art project, I can get it by the next day. Often, sometimes it's 2 or 3 days. But that immediate response to support teachers, well, read the teacher comments. You'll get a feel for why, when people thank us for what we're doing, we say, you know what? It's pure pleasure to be in this situation and in this role. There's a teacher at Redwood who calls me the fairy godmother. Okay, just call me the FG for short. So thanks to the principals, I mean, both Lundy and Rick have been unbelievably trusting and receptive to our presence, our idea, trying to support us with space, with flexibility in scheduling. And we have a lot of flexibility because we have an MOU with the district. We don't have to do grades. We don't have to do this. So we can just be there. What do you need? When do you need it? Oh, you can't come that hour because there's testing today. Okay, well, Norma will come in at 8:30 the next morning. Well, we could fit in 10 minutes then, and I could come bring you that to finish. You know, just that flexibility has been really wonderful to have. We also need to acknowledge Children's Fund, Hudson Foundation. Fort Bragg Rotary has just donated $500 to buy the maracas for this Children's Day. The Parents Club donated money to support the Children's Day. And a year ago, we had a grant from California Council for the Arts that helped support Norma's salary. So we also have expanded, Flockworks has involvement in the Mendocino Youth Project and the Blue Door Teen Center. If you've been to the Dietrich Center lately, it's really very beautifully decorated, and I think that's an exciting area for sure. At this point, I think everybody recognizes the essential nature of the arts and arts integration. So my plea is that we really need to work together for sustainability for this, somehow to work on a plan to make this an ideal program. Because I really think we can have an ideal elite school system where people beg to get into the schools, because this is where they move here, they want to be in this school system because they're lining up at the door because the offerings are so rich. And it's been proved beyond a doubt that those rich offerings will enhance cognitive learning, test scores. I don't think there's anybody arguing against that. There's a little article in the at the back of your little packet that ties cognitive learning to the arts. It's beyond being proved repeatedly now. And we can see it in student engagement. I was in a classroom in Redwood 2 weeks ago giving a little lesson, and the teacher said, I don't know, we had to lock down the classroom, we've been out of it for 2 hours, there's emotional fragileness, I don't know. And the project was a little challenging, but there I only do process art, and they only got yellow and blue paint, and guess what yellow and blue paint made? And they were doing pretty, you would not have known which children were having problems. Everybody was engaged for 40 minutes. No materials were being abused, and there's a lot of freedom. You could have made a pretty big mess there. I'm a pretty messy artist, so. And the teacher's like, oh, the teacher and the aides sat down and just started painting themselves. You know, they're and it was just a pleasure to have that dropping down and having that creativity just kind of expand into their beings. So let's work together to have a plan to really make this sustainable. Ariana went to school here, was raised here. Has been in San Francisco for a bunch of years, worked at the DeYoung as the family art outreach coordinator for years, and came back here with her kids. And she's on the Flockworks board, and she's been just an unbelievable asset of knowledge, inspiration, skill. So your packet, you know how it looks good with little pictures? Guess who didn't make that?
Well, thank you, Joanna, and thank you, Ariana.
So, Ariana, just wanted to say one thing about the financial part. The last page.
Could you come to the mic, please?
Sorry. One of the final pages in the packet just outlines roughly the finances from our organization. And Janet wanted me to really underline the fact that the organization has been run on her volunteer and Joanna's volunteer time, and we're looking towards sustainability in the way that Flockworks becomes an employer in the arts and education in this area, and we really will need, as Joanna mentioned, your support in building a sustainable future where Joanna and Janet can step back. So I'm part of those people who will step forward, but we also know that we can't do it without y'all. So thank you. And please reach out to us if you have questions about all the fun things. And please come to the Children's Festival.
Yes.
Thank you
you so
again.
much for your time and engagement in assisting students and teachers during the transition back to school.
It's been inspiring to work with the teachers here.
Thank you. So our next item is 8.52, nutrition service update that Superintendent Walker will present.
So I'm presenting on behalf of Pilar Gray. She did include in your packet her report. I have to say that where we were with nutrition services when I first was the superintendent with all of you in 2016 was a little frightening. There was a huge encroachment on the general fund. We really charged Pilar with the difficult task of balancing this to zero. And in fact, at the time, Wendy and I sat down with her and said, look, we'd be happy if it was just 100,000 of an encroachment to the general fund and not $250,000. And right now, I think we're down to zero.
Wow.
Close?
This year.
This year. Okay, we're down to zero for this year. As I leave, we're down to zero.
We received a lot of federal support. They increased the reimbursement rate last year because of all the extra meals during COVID that we delivered, and because of the volume and that little extra bump, we carried a little bit of a surplus into this year. So that'll carry us through this year, and then I think that the trouble, and she's outlined it in her report here, supply chain issues and costs are just escalating.
Mm.
So it's, we're not gonna really know, but she has done a tremendous job trying to bring it down and bring it under control. And I was gonna try to contribute a little bit of a budget thing, but the problem with the way the nutrition services works is, for instance, we just received our January money because we submit a bill to the state every month, right after the end of the month, but it takes them a couple of days. So we have all of our March expenses in, but we only have through January revenue in. So it wasn't a good way to try to show you where things stand year to date. So as we get closer to the end of the year, we'll be able to see that.
The good news is we are hoping that we don't ever get back to that level of an encroachment. The community eligibility program has really helped us alleviate a lot of those expenses. I love that we're doing free meals for all at all of our sites. That's a big deal. The grab and go carts that started, I believe, this week. Is that correct, Mr. Triplett? The grab and go carts started this week? Next week. Grab and go carts are on their way. That's going to be another great push to get meals out to kids. Pilar is quite the grant writer, so she really secured some funding this year for new equipment. My hat's off to her. She's done a tremendous job. She was really tasked with a very difficult position 6 years ago when we began, and I remember her looking at me with a scrutiny that was probably not filled with a lot of like, because we were in a very much different shape. And she really has stepped up and answered the call and gotten creative and is doing a really wonderful job in feeding all of our kids. In the 6 years that I've been here, she has moved us to CEP. We have free meals for all kids. She began a breakfast in the classroom program that is wonderfully working at Redwood and Dana Gray. The meals at the middle school have increased. The meals at the high school have increased. The staff is more stable than it's ever been. We used to have just food services go just round the clock. So she really did a good job of organizing the department so that folks have viable positions with good sets of hours. I'm thrilled where we are as far as nutrition services go. She's really done a remarkable job, and she is challenged with the supply chain issues. It's not her fault. And again, hats off to her. You can read the report. There's great reimbursement there. The grants are fantastic. We are looking for bigger and better things as we move forward.
Great. Thank you. I know pre-pandemic, we all went to lunch at each site, and there is a lot of food, and they do a good job of providing a balanced meal. And I was amazed how the kids said it was too big of a line to wait. So I think the Go food carts, I'll be really interested to see if they can get more food and bellies on site, because they don't want to wait. I mean, the line vanishes as quickly as it arrives. So their realm of waiting in line is different than an adult.
And what's interesting, if you go into the student union at the high school, which is the hardest hit place for lunch, I watched a kid one time go through the line, and it was under 5 minutes to get from the very end up to the front.
Too long. And
then I looked up at the clock, and in 6 minutes there was no line. Like it was all gone. And the middle school, they get everybody through within the first 4 minutes. It is amazing. And no one can leave the middle school. Like, they're all there. But they run 2 lines in 2 different directions, and it is just boom, 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 they go. So it's a sight to be seen, to be quite honest with you. And I get it. If I'm a kid, I'm walking in going, oh no, I'm out. But it's quick. And as an adult, when you go in and have lunch at the cafeterias, which I would encourage you to do, you pay your $5, and you get quite a portion. It's pretty great. So I'll go down to Redwood and find out, well, what day is it? Is it Orange Chicken Day? And the funny thing is, when they serve their roasted chicken, which is one of my favorites, by the way, as the adult, you get 2. Very exciting. So anyway, we are very happy with Pilar and what she does, and our kiddos appreciate having hot food again and not bagged lunches. So we're excited. The kitchen is back.
Okay. Any other comments or questions?
There's no public comment.
Great. And we have next on the agenda, California Healthy Kids Survey results, and I believe Carolyn Carini will be presenting.
I will.
Thank you.
Okay, so for background and a little bit of context, the California Healthy Kids Survey is core modules that we do surveys with the kids. It's the largest one in the state. We're surveying resiliency, protective factors, risk behaviors, and we're looking at students in the 5th, 7th, 9th, and 11th grade. Strict guidelines are used to preserve student privacy, data confidentiality, and all other student and parent rights. Every student, their participation is voluntary and anonymous. And when we're collecting those results, we have to have at least 60% of complete answers to get a survey response. So when I'm talking about that, know that we've hit a minimum threshold. I want to begin by thanking the teachers and the students and the administrators who participated in the survey for their commitment, time, and effort. We administered the California Healthy Kids Survey in the fall of 2019, right before we closed down, right? And then we administered it again. We do it every other year. So we administered it again this fall. So I'm going to begin by taking a look at where we were before the school closure and where we are after. And then I started looking at equity and bias because that's in the news a lot lately, and I was interested in some of the stats on that. Overall, we have a lot of good news to share. So our 9th and 11th graders feel safe at school today. When we looked at the survey results, it was 70% in the 9th grade, up from 56% in 2019. So
Carolyn, do you want to advance the slides so people can follow you?
Yeah, I've got about 3 slides I'm going to show. I'm not going to go through all the slides.
The
Be thankful for
300
that.
pages. Very thorough, 322.
If I can get to, oh, they're not numbered. Okay.
You're on
So I'm talking about 9th and 11th grade. Let me get back over to 9th and 11th. Okay, hold it, wait. And we're talking about student safety. Going back. School safety, okay? School being perceived as very safe or safe, all right? So back in 2019, it was 56% of the students in the grades 9 and 11 that felt safe or very safe. When we came back and administered this fall, it's up to 70%. So we made a 14-point jump there. And you're not gonna, that's just gonna show you the data from that we just did in the fall. So I'm doing a comparison. And then 60% of our 11th graders feel safer today as opposed to 2018. So it was a 2% jump, not as significant, but there we go. School violence has decreased. Now, I'm not going to is it okay if I don't pull up the slides, or do you guys want me to run through the slides with you? What would you like me to do? Do you want me to go through the slides?
keep talking.
Yeah. To keep talking?
Yeah.
We've
seen
I'm
that.
jumping back and forth
Yeah.
in it.
I have too.
School violence has decreased. So 14% in 7th grade have been in a physical fight. That's down from 27% in 2019. And that data was surprising to me because we know that the kids have come out of a very traumatic experience with school closures and the pandemic. But good news. Current alcohol or drug use has declined in 7th, 9th, and 11th grades. So 5th grade, though, went up with alcohol use. So they're reporting that in 5th grade, they're up at 37% for alcohol use, as opposed to having 22% in 2018. School climate scores overall were very high. Students are feeling connected and share that the adults have high expectations for them. Most of our kids are eating breakfast at school every day, tying into the nutrition report that Becky just shared. And our students are reporting positive school supports, teachers who want them to do their best and believe that they're going to be a success. And that was across all the grade levels. And it's in the slide presentation. It's just out of order. We did have some challenges. When I'm going to talk about the challenges, this is just the initial data. So we need to have conversations around the data to determine what it means and what the interventions would be. But some of the challenges we had were in 5th and 7th grade, so our lower grade students don't feel as safe. So what was interesting is the older kids feel safer at school now, and our younger kids don't feel as safe post-pandemic. Schools perceived as safe or very safe. 5th grade is at 68%, which is down from 78% in 2018, so a 10-point downward shift. 7th grade is at 55%, which is down from 69%, which is a 14-point drop. So our younger kids, our 5th and 7th graders, not feeling as safe at school. So those are some high points to look at. I'm not going to run through every data point because there is a lot of data in the slide presentation. I'll open it up to questions at the end. I did mention that I wanted to look at equity and bias. It's been in the news lately. I wanted to take a look and see what we're getting on the reports. So students are reporting that they have felt disrespected by an adult at their school because of their race, ethnicity, or culture. In 7th grade, 17% of kids are reporting that. 9th grade is 13%, and in 11th grade, 13%. Not huge numbers, but higher than we would want to see them, right? And then students reporting that there's a lot of tension in their school between people of different cultures, races, or ethnicities. 7th grade, we've got 17% reporting. 9th grade, 21%, and 11th grade, 18%. So those are some areas that we're going to be addressing inside the district, and we already are. Becky A has brought in some training to address cultural sensitivity, and we're in the midst of that, so we're working on that. Those were the high points. I could have made this a lot longer, but I know that you would want to throttle me. Does anyone have any questions?
Does anyone have any questions?
So do you have any idea why some of the younger kids are not feeling as safe at school now versus before the pandemic?
So I'm going to jump in here for just a second, Carolyn. One of the things we have to remember is the 5th graders who they're being compared to the 5th graders who took this before, so it's not the same kids. So when we think about the little guys who were home during the pandemic, school is typically the safe space, especially for younger kids, because they're here with a cohort of trusting adults. We can speculate why. I think that there's a huge shift of not being in school for a full year, not being around so many people, and now we're coming back. The 5th graders were coming back from 3rd grade. So the last time they were in school full time was for 3rd grade. Their class sizes were smaller. They went from the bottom of the totem pole up to the top of the totem pole in a blink of an eye with big class sizes. So there's a lot of variables that are involved in this, and it was interesting to see that. And the older kids being safe at school, they needed to come back. They needed to be back in school. They wanted to be back in school. So that safety for the older kids made a whole lot of sense. The 7th graders, again, their last time in school was, for the full time, was 5th grade at Dana Gray. They were at the top of the pecking order. They were living large, feeling good, totally secure. They came back to middle school, moving classes. They didn't move classes last year. So their first experience at middle school was in the middle of the heap. So that's a huge social difference for those kids. So I'm not sure if you were going to point that out or not.
Also, I was thinking when I looked at the safety measures, Becky, I was looking at it and thinking about when they're coming back with a mask. When they came back with social distancing. And so maybe the resiliency of our younger students that may have being back in class and with all the safety protocols may have had an impact. That's why we have to have deeper conversations about the data, because there's a lot more going on.
And the survey didn't change?
No.
Pre and post pandemic?
I believe we did we add a module on 5th grade? I think we did.
So the California Healthy Kids Survey, we do this every other year. It's actually a requisite for some of our grants. It's also a requirement for the state priorities when we report every October with that. We can do our own data, or we can do the California Healthy Kids Survey. We choose to do the survey. What I like about the survey is that it's a consistent survey. The questions are typically the same every year, and they do that so that you can compare apples to apples. When we compare, though, what we typically do is we look at if we look at the 7th grade this year, we'll look back at the 5th grade from 2 years ago. Just to piggyback on what Carolyn was saying, when we started school this year, there was lots of anxiety about returning from a pandemic. We still have some kiddos who are deathly scared about getting sick. Wendy and I were just on the county call yesterday, and we were talking about when we went to a mask optional setting, what happened in Fort Bragg Unified. The common cold went rampant. Lots of people came to the district office to get tested, all negative, But it was, the common cold was ridiculous. And then there was a stomach bug that went around Dana Gray, and I think it's going through some of our other schools as well.
Redwood has it.
So this little stomach bug, and kids are throwing up, and we're testing them. They're not positive for COVID. So I think part of that safety with school is exactly what Carolyn said as well, that the pandemic is a different kind of safety. It's causing a different kind of safety issue, I should say.
Or recognizing that they feel different. Yeah, for sure.
It's just interesting with such a huge outside influence that, you know, I don't know how they would change the survey, but asking the same questions you did 2 years ago, you know, you're going to have totally different answers for reasons that have nothing to do with what's happening at school.
Right. Yeah. My only question after reviewing, I just am shocked at how young kids are experimenting with substance and didn't know. I know you can pick your questions, maybe you can't, but do we know when they're using the substance? Like, it would be nice as a parent or as a school to know, is it on weekends? Is it after school? I mean, I wouldn't think it's before school, but just to capture the lull time, the downtime that they're able to partake in this. And
So the questions do separate home from school. So one of the questions are, have you used alcohol and drugs during school hours? And the other would be outside of school.
yeah, but I'd even want it more specific, like
Yeah.
the time of day. Is it only weekends? Is it after school? You know, like they need to have supervision, but there's no cure for it. But just be curious to know, you know, to develop those conversations, to know, to be aware, because that's awfully young.
Well, and we had a lot of kids being supervised by older brothers and sisters during the remote learning year because moms and dads had to go to work.
Yeah.
And what was available to them in the home at that time. And so there's lots of what ifs out there, and there's lots of speculation. What's incumbent upon us as a school system is to look at this data and say, what can we do to support healthy kids? What can we do in our health lessons, in our nutrition lessons, in our life lessons, in our social emotional lessons to support kids to have a drug and alcohol free childhood?
Right. Yep.
And I think all of that all of the social emotional leads to most of these things. The bullying that was happening in 5th grade, I think it was 55%. That was a little alarming, but interestingly, it went down in the upper grades, down to 37%. But all of these things, once you can deal with people's social emotional needs, these things will go down, I would think. So thank you for all your hard work.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you for bringing in Jimmy, and I can't remember the other man's
Kevin
name.
Skipper.
Kevin, yes.
Great. So any public comment? Otherwise, we'll move on to Measure B, Bond Building Fund Audit Report.
There is no public comment.
So this was the first audit of the bond modernization project. There wasn't a whole lot to audit because we'd only had a couple of months of activity, so it was relatively easy on everyone. And this is basically just reporting to you. It's been shared with the Citizens Oversight Committee. We're working on getting a meeting together with them shortly so that they can talk about this, but there really wasn't much activity.
Right, because this was report ending last June,
Yeah.
right? Okay, so yeah, there wasn't much
No.
to review. So this is just a disclosure. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, thank you.
And I checked with our bond counsel, and there is no requirement for the board
Action.
to approve it.
Okay.
And have you heard from Don Alameda yet? Not yet.
Okay.
We'll hear from him when he walks in the door.
Yeah, right.
So our next item under reports is the CSEA, which is the California Schools Employees Association.
There is no CSEA report.
Okay, and the next would be the FBDTA, which is the Fort Bragg District Teachers Association.
There is no FBDTA report.
Okay, thank you.
And President Paoli, would you mind if we pause for just a moment so that if anyone in the audience would like to go home, you can sneak out?
Thank you for attending.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Bruce, you have to stay.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I remember vividly in March of 2020, Flockworks presented at our March meeting, and just less than a week later, we shut down. And I remember going back, we had a room full of people, like what's going to happen? You know, you're worried. You know, so it's nice to see people and understand. Yeah, we're here again. Okay, thank you. So our next item is approval of agenda consent items. And these are provided on the agenda that are routine and non-controversial. Items on the consent agenda are passed in one motion without discussion. Any items may be pulled for the consent agenda by the board and moved to action when approving the agenda. So I will have Vice President Makala read our items.
Okay, item 9.1, warrants. 9.2, minutes for the March 10th regular meeting, March 14th special meeting, March 17th special meeting, and April 11th special meeting. Item 9.3, personnel action report. Item 9.4, contracts. Item 9.5, Williams quarterly report for the third quarter. And item 9.6, the teacher consent.
Very good. May I have a motion?
I'll move to approve.
In a second?
I'll second.
Very good. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes. Seeing no objection, so moved. And we're moving on to our first board action item, which is Alger Street Fence Project 10.1.
So we have Tony Natarino.
Natarino, thank you.
Tony is here as the Assistant General Manager for the Skunk Train.
Nice to meet you.
So you saw the background package. The Skunk Train is requesting to put a fence up by Alger Street. They need your permission because that is technically our property. Did you have... What would you like to add, Tony?
I was just going to introduce myself, and thank you for doing so. And again, thank you for the opportunity to speak up here. This is my first time at the podium. It's exciting. Well, I'll introduce myself again. Hi, I'm Tony Natarino, the Assistant General Manager over at the Skunk Train. Part of my responsibilities include direct oversight of 8 different departments. Within those 8 departments, it's about 50 different employees. And some of the additional responsibilities I have are event planning and project management. And one of the projects we're wanting to work on is the Alger Street Fence Project. So I wanted to start off by saying prior to the acquisition of the property, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, is located just east of the middle school, west of the bus barns. It was a pretty scary site. It was a site for vagrants, homeless people, and some of the activities that took place on the property were drug use, arson, and trespassing, of course. Now, all these activities weren't just limited to the one single property. It was the school's property as well as the city. Shortly after purchasing the Alger Street property, we conducted a cleaning and a grading. Since that's happened, we have seen less illicit activity. We have seen less trespassers and just homeless encampments in general, but it hasn't completely ceased. Now, what we'd like to do is we'd like to work with the school district to just tighten up security and in building a double gate fence right at the end of Alder Street. We think that would limit access from homeless, from these vagrants, from the encampments. In doing so, it's our hope that we're going to eliminate all of these issues that we've seen in the past.
Great, thank you, Tony. Questions?
I do. So I understand why you want to do this. I walk down there and I see the trail going down the hillside. A few years ago, you got a grant from one of the conservancy situations to do with your tunnel, and building a trail alongside the track so people could walk out there. At any point, is there going to be an opportunity for somebody like me to, say, go to the ticket office and sign up or sign a waiver or something? Because it seems like you're just blocking the whole thing off so it's inaccessible to the public, and I didn't know if there was ever going to be an opportunity for folks like me to walk? A lot of people like to walk on the railroad tracks,
Just on the
or on the trail alongside.
absolutely.
But how do you achieve that? I mean, how do I access that?
So that is something we are working on. Currently, we are waiting on one additional item, but the way it's going to work, or the way we intend it to work is.
I'm sorry, could you speak a little bit louder?
The way we intend it to work is it's included in a ticket price, or you can pay. We're not sure if there's going to be a fee associated with it just yet, and you could walk that trail.
So, I mean, you have to actually buy a ticket on the train to do it?
We're considering it. Not necessarily. We're not entirely sure yet, but we're looking at strictly walking the trail and using
Right.
sort of a visitor pass.
Yeah, like a membership or
Exactly,
some kind of a yearly fee with some kind of a little card so people know. I know that your folks that are on the rail bikes, which are great, by the way,
Thank you.
are pretty careful about not wanting folks in there right now. So I just we want to, hopefully there's a mechanism to do it the right way that you'd be comfortable with.
Of course, yeah.
So coming soon, hopefully?
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Of course.
Okay, any other questions?
We assume the fence will be locked, right?
Yes.
And this district will have a key to that lock.
Absolutely.
Just wanna make-
As well as the fire department too.
And who owns this building that you have pictures of in here? A barn or
So
something?
that building was actually burnt down, unfortunately. That's the one that was located on the east side of Aldrich Street. That was us.
Okay.
That was arson.
Okay. Any public comment? Otherwise, may I have a motion or further questions?
There
or
is no
discussion?
public comment.
I'll make a motion to approve the Auger Street fence project.
I'll second.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Trustee Babcock?
Yes.
Trustee Makla?
Yes.
Trustee Paley?
Yes.
Trustee Mattson?
Yes.
Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Very
Thanks,
good.
Tony.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tony.
So the next item on the agenda is 10.2, Resolution 2206, authorizing filing of applications for the California Preschool Transitional Kindergarten and Full-Day Kindergarten Facility Grant Program.
So this resolution basically approves the filing of requested funding for these. We are still trying to determine if we qualify for them, but if we find out that yes, we do for any of them, this puts us in a position where we can say go. So that's really all this is. And it is saying that we will comply with all the rules and regulations of the TK pre-K program that the state has started, should we qualify.
Very good. So does anyone have any questions, public comment?
No public comment.
That's pretty straightforward. Would you like to read, or should it's
sure.
short enough?
Yes, okay. Fort Bragg Unified School District Resolution Number 2206, resolution authorizing filing of applications for the California Preschool Transitional Kindergarten and Full-Day Kindergarten Facility Grant Program for Fort Bragg Unified School District. Whereas the Fort Bragg Unified School District is applying to the State Allocation Board for approval of California Preschool, Transitional Kindergarten, and Full-Day Kindergarten Facility projects, now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Trustees for the Fort Bragg Unified School District that contingent upon receipt of funds from the California Preschool, Transitional Kindergarten, and Full-Day Kindergarten Facility Grant Program, the district will provide full-day instruction for the applicable programs, preschool, transitional kindergarten, and/or full-day kindergarten at Redwood Elementary School pursuant to Assembly Bill 130, Education Code 8972 and 8973. That, with the receipt of funds from the California Preschool, Transitional Kindergarten, and Full-Day Kindergarten Facility Grant Program, the district will continue to provide full-day instruction for the applicable programs, preschool, transitional kindergarten, and/or full-day kindergarten at Redwood Elementary School pursuant to Assembly Bill 130, Education Code 8972 and 8973.
Very good. Okay. So the only question I have before I ask for a motion is it does say that we will provide full day instruction. So is there some sort of a waiver if we don't have the space or we don't have that many children that it'd be half day, or how does that work?
We need to have you sign this and approve this in order for us to apply.
Gotcha.
Okay?
And then you make
And so we don't know if we're
adjustments.
going to qualify for this grant, but
Gotcha.
if you don't submit this, we can't even apply.
Gotcha.
And so right now I will tell you, we don't offer a full day TK program, and I'm not putting anything to you to provide a full day TK program in the following year because we simply don't have the facilities for it.
Right.
So we're investigating some options of, okay, if we get it and then we build it, can we do it?
Right.
That's one. We do have some kiddos who go full-time into the preschool program right now because they attend double sessions. Does that count for something? So we need more time to investigate if we can pull it off. But if you don't do this, we won't even be able to
Right.
apply. So I will tell you right now that this is a big what if. It's in our benefit to have this in our back pocket, though.
Right. Well, and it doesn't say when we will provide it. There's no calendar date. So I'm comfortable with that explanation. May I have a motion?
Can I make one comment first?
Yes.
On the agenda, it calls it out as Resolution 2207, but the resolution says 2206. Just so we get the right one.
I actually have, it's been corrected. So I don't know when you printed it out.
Yeah. It was a couple days ago. So.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when she posted it on Monday.
Okay.
you
It's been
probably-
corrected.
Yeah.
Thank
As
you.
long as we get the right number, that's all I care about.
Because it was, yeah, because I saw
Diana
that.
wanted them in order.
Yeah. So on our preview day,
It
when
is
you
2206.
printed it, yeah, yep. So what the agenda was posted, but thank you for paying attention.
Good
job, Jerry.
Yeah, you do catch those little details. Okay, so may I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution number 22-06, authorizing filing of applications for the California Preschool Transitional Kindergarten Full Day Kindergarten Facility Grant Program for Fort Bragg Unified School District.
Yeah.
In a second.
I'll second.
Very good. Roll call, please.
Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
Trustee Mattson?
Yes.
President Paley?
Yes.
Trustee Makla?
Yes.
And Trustee Babcock?
Yes.
And motion
Very-
carries.
Yep, very good. So 10.3 is athletic director job description.
So this is a new position we're asking you to consider and approve. We need an athletic director for the district. We've done it through a stipend position at Fort Bragg High School. We had no certificated teacher who wanted to be the athletic director. Adam Kubo was the athletic director prior to COVID. Prior to him, it was Mark Cimolino, who has become the assistant principal at Fort Bragg Middle School. Prior to Mark, it was Bruce Triplett as the assistant principal when he and I were together, and that was not a model that was working. And so we had reinstated the athletic director with a certificated person because it was in the contract. Long story short, Mr. Triplett and Mr. Cimolino are both doing the job of athletic director. It is too much to ask for them to do. It is too much supervision. They already work more days out of their contract. We need to provide some type of relief, to be quite honest with you. There is no teacher who can do the level of work that an athletic director, that we need from an athletic director. It makes sense with the size of our district that we have an athletic director that oversees the middle school and the high school. By making them a classified manager, we can do the things that we have not been able to do, like do coaching evaluation and coaches trainings and really work with our coaches. It has to be a manager so that that evaluation piece can go in. What we love about this position is if it's approved, this person would be 8 hours. They would be on a classified manager scale. The other classified manager is like our preschool director, so we made it the same salary schedule. This person would be able to flex their hours. So if there's a football game, instead of working 8 to 4:30, they may work 1 to 9:30 to be able to provide supervision at that football game. And we can't do that with our administrators because they have to be at their day job. So I would like you to really consider this position. I love the fact that it would work over the middle school and the high school, be able to follow kids, really support student athletes, encourage our kiddos who may be disenfranchised at school to get involved in the support. It gives us another adult to work directly with kids.
Yeah. And it would be funding through the supplemental concentration funds, which is similar to, this will be part of maybe the LCAP.
Yes.
To be able to provide that. That can be sustained if that's a priority, basically.
Correct. And here's the good news. We haven't done this before.
Yeah.
So we instate it, we see if it's working, we look at our student data on our athletes, how are their grades, are we getting more participation? We look at our coaches, if we're able to sustain coaches, coaches need support too.
Right.
So I'm hoping that there's going to be some longitudinal data that we can gain from this to see if it's working. If it's
Right.
not,
Well, I appreciate trying to fix something that, you know, going back, but giving someone both sites is a little bit scary, but I can see the continuity of that being an 8-hour position. And hopefully that special person will apply, because that'll be a tricky job. But I do know you've always brought to us the correlation to engagement and meaningful commitment for the athletes that are scholars. And so it is a huge advantage for attendance, you know, increasing attendance and another adult that they trust to, you know, follow their education and having that be a goal.
we know that kids succeed in school if they are attached to school outside of an academic setting. That's what our research continues to show. So 40% of Fort Bragg High School right now is participating in the spring season. It's a lot of kids.
A lot of kids. Okay. Any questions?
Does this job include benefits and retirement?
Yes, so it's 8 hours, the full benefits, medical, dental, vision, life. They'll be full-time in PERS. They will not have the option to decline the benefits, though. That's the tricky part. But it's an 8-hour-a-day job. It's a full-time job. It's a decent salary for, and that was the other thing that we wanted to look at. We wanted to make sure that it was a livable wage.
Well, and historically, that was something the vice principal at the high school did, which was a lot on one person to take care of. Especially, I think the duties for vice principals have increased exponentially. So the duty days are 195. So it's 5 days before teachers come back and 5 after, or?
So it's a little tricky, and we have to look at the season. So football begins incredibly early, and we need to start getting kids cleared. So the idea is that it might be 7 or 8 days, or a full 10 days before before school starts, because at the end of the year, there's not much going on after graduation. So we picked 195 days because we thought that the athletic director is going to have to be present and ready 2 weeks before school starts. That's when practice can begin.
Right. Okay, and so then local games, they'll be at all of those, and
yes,
they'll be basically like an administrator. I mean, they're not administrators, but they'll be.
But they're classified managers, so they are like an administrator for our purposes in the CIF world, and that's the other reason this is hugely beneficial for us. So yes, and that's why when you pull them outside of it as an administrator and they're a classified manager, we can do those flexing of the hours.
Right, and they have a lot of out-of-town meetings as well.
Again, flexing of the hours.
Right.
So this position, the coaches really do develop the games, the times, so that there would be some overlap. Will there be that collaboration just so that if there's 2 home games, I mean, how does this one person cover both? Or
we're still going to get coverage from our staff.
Yeah, gotcha.
It's the athletic director is going to have to pick the ones that are going
needed.
to take the priority, or that have not much participation from staff. So if we have lots of participation at the high school game, but we don't have much participation at the middle school game, they may have to go to the middle school. But that's the lovely part of having this person do with both. They'll be able to work with both administrations to figure out where they need to be.
Okay.
So now we just have to hope somebody applies.
I have to say, I think this position will be attractive to some moms and dads who are wanting to. Well, it's a great calendar because you're working the calendar of your kids. If you're going to the games already, or if you've been involved with the games already, it's going to be a little tricky if it's a mom or a dad of an athlete, because that's always a conflict.
Yeah.
But I think we're going to have the ability to really attract someone good for the position.
So Trustee Babcock, did you have a question?
I was just making sure we didn't have to give up this position. We're not giving up anything.
The priority.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because my question has to do, you've talked about ratios before with classified versus like, you can't get too top heavy or whatever. Does this?
Oh, number
That
of
certificate, yeah,
administrators.
great question. We have a ratio with certificated administrators to certificated staff. That's not the same case with classified managers.
So when we talked, okay, got it.
So that's why this is in a different class.
Okay. Is there any public comment before we ask for a motion or any other
There is no
questions?
public comment.
May I have a motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion to approve the athletic director job description as presented.
I'll second.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Trustee Babcock? Yes.
Trustee Makla? Yes.
Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
Trustee Mattson?
Yes.
President Paley?
Yes.
And motion carries.
Thank you for trying to figure out a solution, because having no one designated was rough on the administrators, and there's only so many hours in the day, and I know things had to have fallen through the cracks, and so this will be nice to have someone in that position. And if it doesn't work, we can always we can adjust.
Yes.
So 10.4 is kudos for kids after school program policies and procedures.
And we have Beth Pine here. Beth, I don't know if you want to talk or not, but I just want to give a little bit of accolades for Beth. Beth has really risen to the occasion with all of our after-school programs and kept us informed. And I have to tell you, when we started this journey, Beth has really helped organize and mobilize what we do with the after-school programs and help us in so many systematic ways. So thank you, Beth. 10.4, what you have in front of you, both MCRPD and Fort Bragg Unified is actually looking at these policies and procedures today at their board meetings. And so we need you to adopt these policies and procedures for our Kudos for Kids, so that it's, I guess what you would, we need it adopted so that we can implement them, essentially. And so because our after-school program is governed by the MCRPD program, but we are the agency, it's our program, so that's why you're looking at these.
I have a question. Is this for 21-22 or 22-23?
22-23.
Okay, so we'd have to
The top.
change that on the.
It says 21-22 on the top, but then on the cover page,
Thank you for catching that,
it's
Wendy
the
Boyce.
same as for 2021-22.
So yes, this is for 22-23. So it says, Director of Special Programs Carol Carini has provided
Yeah,
policies
it
for the
says
Kudos
that,
for
yeah.
Kids program for 22-23. They're essentially the same as 21-22.
Yeah, that's where so we will make sure that it says 22. So any questions, or may I have a motion?
I'll move to approve item 10.4, kudos for kids after school program policies and procedures
For 22-23.
for 22-23.
In a second?
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
Trustee Makla?
Yes.
Trustee Mattson?
Yes.
President Paley?
Yes.
Trustee Babcock?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, and the next item on the action is kudos and assets memorandum of understanding for 2022-23.
So this is our basic MOU so that we can work together and provide the after-school program.
And it actually says 21-22 up here. Is yours?
Oh, yay. Sorry.
Yeah, 21-22. This is on that subject. That's right.
Any significant changes from?
It's pretty much the same, to be quite honest with you.
This is,
So where's the date change?
it's just on the cover
Up on the
page.
cover page.
The title on the
okay.
cover page, but the title on the agenda is correct. And I don't think, it just says that ending services through June 30, 2023.
So this is for the 22-23 school year.
Let's see if there's,
And the date. It seems they're right in the document.
yeah.
The MOU is correct. It's the,
Yes.
it's the, it's the cover page,
Mhm.
the subject line.
Okay, are there any questions?
And there is no public comment.
Is there any in-person public comment?
Beth, would you like to say anything? No?
Okay, okay, just making
Can I
sure.
ask Beth a quick question? I was just curious about do you still, oh, thanks. We just wanted to get you up the podium. I think it was last year, no, not last year, because we were not in school, but the year we were in school, instituted the late charges. Did you see a decrease in families picking up kids late?
Yes, quite a decrease in families picking, and this year, I think we've only had one late charge that we've, asked to be charged. We've had some late pickups, but it's not like the same person consistently.
Mhm.
It's an occasional, oops, I was late because of whatever. And so we give grace on that.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Mhm.
Good question. So, are there any questions? Otherwise, may I have a motion? Oh, yeah, you're fine.
I'll move to approve the Kudos and Assets Memorandum of Understanding for 22-23.
In a second,
I'll second.
roll call, please.
Trustee Mackla,
Yes.
Trustee Babcock,
Yes.
Trustee Schneider,
Yes.
Trustee Matson,
Yes.
President Paley.
Yes,
The motion carries.
thank you. Next item on the agenda is Timberwolf Stadium Announcers Booth Dedication.
So Tony the Mike, beloved Tony the Mike. It is still hard to believe that he is no longer with us. A fixture in our community. The FBHS Parent and Booster Clubs would like to dedicate the Timberwolf Stadium announcers booth to him. In the background sheet, you can see where they would like to put a plaque. Because this is technically school district property, even though the stadium committee is leasing the property at this point, it will turn over and be ours. So they would like to do this correctly so that no one takes it down. Tony did a lot for the community. I know you all know this. There's no question about what he did. And I fully support a plaque in his honor at the Timberwolf Stadium announcers booth.
Okay, any questions or comments? Other than the booth looks amazing.
It does.
So it's been
Looks great.
repainted and ready for that
It
plaque.
looks good.
Yeah.
And there's no public comment.
Yeah, a wonderful idea, and I don't think anyone would object to honoring Tony. He was, I think, born and raised here, so really special
Very
individual.
special person, yep. Homecoming will never be the same without him.
So may I have a motion?
I will happily move to approve item 10.6 to the Timberwolf Stadium announcers booth dedication.
In a second,
I'll second.
roll call, please.
Trustee Schneider,
Yes.
Trustee Matson,
Yes.
Trustee Mackla,
Yes.
Trustee Babcock,
Yes.
and President Paley.
Yes,
And the motion carries.
great, thank you. So 10.7 is FBUSD Transitional Kindergarten.
So I would like to table this item until next month. And the reason for that is this evening, roughly 4:06, I can look back in my emails, Erin Carter, who is one of the educational specialists at the Mendocino County Office of Education, contacted me to let me know that he spoke with CDE, and we were under the impression that transitional kindergarten, the lunch could count towards the instructional minutes because the lunch would be in the classroom, and these are little kiddos. And he received an email from CDE today that that information is incorrect and that lunch has to be outside the instructional minutes. So we have to revamp the schedule. I spoke with our 2 TK teachers today to try and come up with some options. And good old Wendy Boyce had some great ideas, and so I brought those forward. So I would like to table this until May for action, until we have something a little bit more solid to give you. We are going to have to change the times. We still need to have an AM and a PM program, and it's strictly because we don't have the facility space at Redwood. We don't have enough space to open 3 or 4 classrooms up for TK and still have a full kindergarten, a full first grade, and a full second grade. So that is not going to change as far as an AM and a PM program, but what will change will be the times, because now they have to meet for 3.5 hours, and we have to figure out a good way to do that.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep. So we will table 10.7 to May 12th.
Thank you.
Or, yeah. So the next item is 10.8, Board Policy Administrative Regulation Update, BPAR 5148.2, before after school programs. And this
So-
is, this has been before us.
We tabled this before because I'm still nervous about the Expanded Learning Opportunities Program. Beth is a fierce advocate for it, and I believe in that veracity. Wendy and myself still have the concern that if we don't meet all the criteria, that any money used by the district would have to be returned. I am hugely concerned about this because the state keeps saying, no, we're not going to do that. Just get the money out there, get the program going. But this is the criteria. And so as superintendents, we have asked countless times, well, what if we can't get 50% of the kids in? What if we can't get those extra 30 days of after-school program outside of the school calendar completed? What if we can't get the staffing? What if? And they've all said, don't worry about it. Just get it going, get it moving. I have to tell you, I worry about it. And I've said to Beth on countless occasions, I cannot, in good faith, ask you to approve a program if we don't know that 3 or 4 years down the road, someone's going to say, hey, all the money that you've spent, even we want it back. So I'm nervous about it. I do believe that the state legislature is going to change some things around this because there's been an outcry from many school districts about it. People want to be able to access the money to infuse it into their after-school program. The reason why we're not so quick to run to it is because we do have a kudos and an assets program. So, and they're doing well. So with that, what I can tell you with the board policy, I do believe we need to adopt these board policies.
Mhm.
I'm just telling you that as of right now, you can adopt the policies, we're still not touching the money.
Right. Well, and I think bigger communities they have more population, so it's a little bit more successful or less risky because they have a bigger population, to allow for, the 9-hour day and more kids. So I could see it being, easier for someone over the hill or down south
And a
to.
bigger staffing pool.
We have a lot of issues with this.
So-
We work with MCRPD because you're required to have a 9-hour day. Well, we can't have a 9-hour employee.
Right.
So we work with MCRPD, and then the question becomes, well, let's just pay them more. Well, if we pay the after-school program more, are we then kicking ourselves in the shins to keep our own employees during the day? And we do pay the MCRPD staff more, but there's no PERS and there's no STIRS. So there's lots of things that make me incredibly nervous about this. Again,
Well, just the idea of the CDE this afternoon changing the rules on, not changing, but finally clarifying the rules on the
Finally giving you more
PK.
information.
Every time we listen to a webinar or attend something, there's a little bit different interpretation. And, until they all get on the same page, it's a little.
Not clear. It's clear as mud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So do we have any questions?
Beth, do you want to add anything?
Sure.
Okay, so
Well,
there's no
a
public comment, I can tell you that.
Okay. And we're having a comment.
Yes, Beth.
So the question that I have around this, and I don't know that there's any answer to it, is that we're getting ready to start registration, and then we've got the consideration of TK in kindergarten at this time. And so we're a little uncertain as to, that it's a 1 to 10 ratio. And from my understanding, we need to go with the 1 to 10 ratio because it is the most restrictive. So even though, because it is intended to be graded with the ACES program, we still need to go with the 1 to 10 ratio. So there's a little, there's actually, it brings up a lot of questions because there's also the understanding that this year was the enrollment of 50% of unduplicated students, and that next year would actually be like enrollment of any student that requested to be in the after-school program. So lots of questions, but as we move forward with registration, I guess the big question is do we register TK? We never have.
So I would say no, we don't, and the reason for that is we're not using ELOP funds. We are using our ACES funds, and we're using, so that, we're still abiding by those original grant rules. So we're not mixing the funding sources right now.
Okay.
So continue to do what you've done for ACES and ACES.
Yeah,
And-
thank you for
And
clarifying
my other
that.
comment is that we'll be sending out, with your approval, we'll be sending out registration, I mean, hopefully even starting tomorrow. So right away, we'll be sending out registration for next year.
Thank you for clarifying her question.
Thank you, Beth.
Trustee Mattson? I mean, Babcock, sorry. It's really not getting that late.
I just wanted Becky, because in one of our board chats, Monique Wooden came, and have you spoke to her since to let her know that this was on here and that, no, we're not touching them? Have you given her an update?
We have talked about this in our meetings.
Right, the MOU.
And she gets it. I've explained it to her ad nauseum. She says, I know, Becky, I get it.
Well, I think her concern, I just wanted to make sure, her concern was that she didn't want to
Had-
get blindsided.
and had
She wanted-
input
Right,
on-
she wanted to know, and I just wanted to make sure that she didn't see this on the agenda and didn't know that you're still not suggesting that we touch the money.
Not touching the money, but I think you have to adopt the policy. to be
Right,
quite
this is
honest
just
with
the
you.
precursor so that it's an option, that we have the policy, and then it's still that, the next part is where she really needs to come in and,
Well,
yeah,
and-
but thank you.
And we're all worried, like, let's say we do it. Where are we gonna get the people?
Yeah.
Right. Staffing alone.
So there's a staffing crisis. And for us, it's more acutely felt, to be
Okay.
quite honest.
Yep, okay.
So what does it mean to adopt a policy and an admin reg to something we're not going to do?
We have those currently.
Because we have the money sitting at
Yeah.
MCOE, so we can access the money. It's sitting there, we haven't touched it.
Right.
So we have a policy about what we're gonna do with that money, but we're not touching the money.
We don't have to use the money.
Right.
Correct.
And we don't have to implement the policy.
A little confusion, that's all.
Yeah.
Just want to clarify.
Yeah.
Well, and maybe CDE will get it together.
And then we'll be ready to touch the money. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so may I have a motion?
I'll move to approve agenda item 10.8, Board Policy Administrative Regulations Update BPAR 5148.2, before and after school programs.
Okay, in a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Trustee Babcock?
Yes.
Trustee Makala?
Yes.
President Paoli?
Yes.
Trustee Mattson?
Yes.
Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Okay, and we have a few more action items that will continue, and then we will let Dawn Alameda come speak on reports. So Resolution 2207 is specification of election order.
This is typical of every, we have to do
Election.
this every election year. And so we have 3 board seats open for election. And this is one of those things we have to do. We always do it. And I know that the board took some criticism years ago. I think when I first became superintendent, someone had come to the podium and said, we never know when there's an election.
Mhm.
Okay? There is an election coming up in November of 2022.
Yes.
So there are 3 board seats open. It's always public and got you as just a point of procedure.
Right, and I do believe this goes to the county, and then they probably put it in a book or some sort of registry. So they want to make sure that our records reflect the same as theirs. And I have seen other districts posting that there are seats available. So it's definitely public in the virtual world as well. So I don't think there'd be any public comment, but if you could check.
I will check, and there
does
is no
anyone
public comment.
have any questions? I think we are matching 2207. You printed on Friday. Yeah. May I have a motion?
I'll move to approve Resolution 2207, specification of election order.
Great, thank you. And a second.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Mattson?
Yes.
Trustee Makala?
Yes.
Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
Trustee Babcock?
Yes.
And President Paoli?
Yes.
Motion carries.
The next item on the action is Board Policy Update BP 3100 Budget.
So we have a little bit of a fortunate situation where there were some dollars that we carried over that the restrictions on them have been eased. And so I would like to use some of that to bring the reserve to 9% rather than 6%. It still is well below the recommended 17%, but given the uncertainties that we're looking at over the next few years, I think it would be prudent to make that adjustment.
And so we've increased this before and had carryovers, and that was a priority that we've already passed. Our board policy saying if there are carryovers, it will go here first. But these aren't one-time monies. This is just money that's restricted, but
It's been eased.
It's been eased. So this is kind of
For 1 year.
Really it's still carryover.
Yes.
But it allows more available carryover.
Yes.
So I don't think it's anything that it's not a surprise, but I am just kind of surprised at the same time. So do we have any questions, concerns?
I am thrilled to see this.
Could we, just for the public, Wendy, could you explain why we like to do this and how it's helped us kind of get through?
So we are going to be looking at a fairly steep deficit spending over the next few years. It's not going, we will still have carryover at the end of those 3 years, but it's going to be a challenge in the next couple of years after that to try to either continue that deficit spending or ease into changes that need to be made. And having a healthy reserve will allow us to make those changes gradually rather than all of a sudden having to have massive layoffs, let's say, or gut programs. It gives us that little bit of cushion to be able to maintain things over a period of time so we can figure out the best way to reduce the deficit spending. The difficulty right now is we have so much one-time money from the COVID relief funds that it's difficult to even completely pull them out of every place and know exactly what we're spending without them, because some of those programs are things that we would like to continue if they turn out to be successful over the next couple of years. So again, having that little bit of cushion allows us to say, yes, we would like to continue this if it's feasible, and knowing that even if we're deficit spending, we do have that fallback if something critical happens.
When Wendy approached this topic with me, I was thrilled. And let me explain one of the reasons. Prior to COVID hitting in March of 2020, we had 1,806 students enrolled in our schools, and that was on March 1, 2020. We closed the doors on March 17th. As of today, we have 1,640 students enrolled. That loss of enrollment is profound. Having money in our reserve so that we can make changes to the budget that third year out gradually rather than hitting a doomsday button is hugely important. I cannot overemphasize that. So when she approached me about this, it was an easy, put it on the
Right.
agenda.
Right.
We're not gonna put it on discussion, we're gonna go straight to action. And again, for the public, this is carryover. This is not
Mhm.
money that's ongoing.
Right.
This is money that is one-time in nature. We don't ever want to use one-time money for anything that eats or breathes. For ongoing expenses, that would be a better way to say it.
Yes.
Sorry. Thank you.
Ongoing,
So we don't want to use it for ongoing expenses. So here we go. We've got some
Right.
one-time money. It was restricted. It's no longer restricted. So she came to me with this idea. What about if we do this? Brilliant.
Right.
It's going to offer huge benefits to Fort Bragg Unified within the next 5 years easily. 3 years
Right,
immediately.
right. And my thinking is that we talked about this. I mean, that was why we evaluated the policy to allow for that carryover. I mean, it was like a no-brainer. If there's carryover, we want to start putting away, because even if we have a natural step and column increase for staff, this will help us if, oh gosh, we didn't account for that and then this happened. This will help every program and every staff, and to keep the budget so that we aren't in a corner and have to do some drastic cuts or have hard discussions. So I just don't see, like, it's always a good thing to put
It's
money
always
in
a good
savings.
thing. And you had, your original resolution a few years ago was the goal is for us to get to 6.
Mhm.
And we had moved carryover at that time to get to 6. And people are saying things like, well, why do you have so much carryover? Because we have open positions that don't get filled. It's not like we're over budgeting and saying, let's just have this over budgeted so that we could carry over. Everybody's working harder because we have these positions that are unfilled.
Mhm.
And that's how the carryover is for us, that's how it's mostly generated, to be quite honest with you.
Right.
We hope and pray that we get those positions filled because it's been negatively impactful to our staff.
Right.
So
But-
right now, though, taking that carryover, having it go to 9% is a huge benefit for us. So thank you, Wendy.
Right.
Brilliant idea.
Well, and thank you for clarifying, because even though they're not filled, you still have to have a number with that. I mean, people don't understand that. I mean, it's not like the county won't allow us to say, well, we don't have it filled, so this is like extra money. It's not. You got to keep it in that place, that for that position, because at any moment someone could come in and
fill it.
Yep. So that's what people really need to understand, that it has to, that those unfilled have to have a number. But this allows us, if it does get filled and for some reason it didn't get, it's there. So any other questions?
Yeah, 2 quick questions. One, you say one-time money, it's eased. Are these COVID funds that have eased, or?
No, it's actually
restricted.
Some of the supplemental concentration dollars that we had carried over the last couple of years, because we've been using COVID money to run those same programs. The state started a tracking system of it, but it doesn't start until this year. So the carryover from that previously, we can put away.
Okay. And the second question is, I'm sure you considered 10, 11, or even 12%.
Always.
She would
but-
dance a jig if you gave her
We all
12.
would, yeah.
I'm dancing a jig looking at 9 from
Okay.
where we
I just-
were
but you
before. I
considered-
mean, we had years where we had our 3% required and $1,800.
Yeah.
So I am dancing a jig at 9 even, really. I mean, yes, if we get to 3 years out and we're still, maintaining a reasonable carryover, then absolutely.
Okay.
And
More, but
I want to remind the board, my first year on, and we went into a qualified budget.
Mhm.
We had a 3% reserve, the mandated reserve, and that was it. And we went into a qualified budget because we could not present a 3-year budget to the county that supported us making,
we went into the hole.
we went into
Yeah.
the hole, and
It was bad.
significantly. And so after that whole thing happened, that exercise of having to deal with the qualified budget, I remember looking at Wendy saying, never again. And so that's when we instituted getting the reserve up to 6%. We've done that. When she came to me and talked about this, in the climate that we are in, given our drastic decline in enrollment, and I just want to say publicly, that on November 1st, we had 1,668 students enrolled in our schools. From November 1 to today, we've lost another 28 students. So I'm nervous about this. Having the money in the reserve gives you flexibility so that we can do what needs to be done in the current and upcoming fiscal year with having a backup plan for year 2 and 3 that we can present to the county. And that's what's wonky about school budgets. We have to present our budget to the county and say, we can pay our bills for the next 3 years. And having this kind of reserve, even though we're deficit spending, we can show the county if everything breaks loose, we still can pay our bills.
I guess I'm just asking because you mentioned the 17%, and this is a very unique opportunity, and so squirreling away as much as possible.
I
which I'm sure you've
hesitate to
looked
do
at.
that all at once.
Yes, but I'm
Yeah.
just, yeah.
But something to look at as a board as we move into the next years with a new superintendent coming on, or if you want to do it before I leave, is looking at a resolution that takes the carryover from year to year that's allowable and moving a large portion of it into the reserve to build it up so that it's not attacking ongoing money would be something that I would encourage all of us to consider. If you want to do that in June and have us present that to you with the in the last 2 regular meetings, that's something that I would strongly consider, because what happens is if we look at that type of a resolution of taking like 50% of the carryover that's allowable and putting it into the reserve each year, what it does, it's not taking the ongoing money.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Right. Well, and if the pandemic taught us nothing else, that look for the unforeseen. Isn't this what got us through the deferrals and so forth? We wouldn't have made it. So thank you. And yes, I'm all for it too.
Okay. If there are no further questions, a motion, please.
Sure, I'll make a motion to approve item number 10.10, board policy update BP 3100 budget.
I'll second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Trustee Mattson?
Yes.
President Paoli?
Yes.
Trustee Makla?
Yes.
Trustee Babcock?
Yes.
Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Okay. And our last item is non-controversial. It's 10.11, teleconferencing virtual meeting requirements pursuant to AB 361. And I imagine, I haven't looked, but it's got to end at some point. I don't know if there is an end on the AB 361, but we are required to approve this every 30 days just in case we have to go back into virtual mode. So.
And I have to tell you, I was grateful that we approved it last month because as I was away, I was able to attend virtually. So it's non-controversial. I would encourage you to continue passing it until it expires, just to have it in the back pocket as a just in case scenario.
Right. Okay. May I have a motion?
I'll move to approve item 10.11, teleconferencing virtual meeting requirements pursuant to AB 361.
In a second?
I'll second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Trustee Makla?
Yes.
Trustee Babcock?
Yes.
Trustee Mattson?
Yes.
President Paoli?
Yes.
Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
Very good.
Motion carries.
Yeah, and really, if something did go down, we would use this, but as a board, we really want to be in person. So that's our priority, but it was great to have staff be able to view in and feel like, because we're the voting members, and so,
Right.
but I totally get what you're saying, just to have that flexibility if we needed to, if the ceiling falls.
No, agreed. It's your meeting. I just help facilitate it, but
Yes.
you it's your meeting.
No, but I'm just saying it's easier for a staff member to zoom in, but as a representative, we really prioritize being in person, because it could be easily used as a convenience thing, and that's not why you were doing that. I don't want to imply that, but it's just too easy because we're all busy. But we take our job seriously, and we want to be here in person. Moving on, we will let Dawn Alameda.
Dawn. So we're moving back
on-
into the agenda on item number 8.2, construction projects update.
Thank you for being flexible on my agenda item. It's kind of running the gauntlet. I was over at Mendocino having really hard conversations with them, similar to what we had in the special board meeting. This ought to be fairly quickly since we already just met and talked budget quite a bit. Do we have a slide? Okay.
Do you want those?
I'm having some weird tech. We have new tech, and I'm old. An old person with new tech is.
Yeah, I'm in
it's
your
always
gap.
exciting. I know I have you in here. Nope. One's up there. It's this one.
Okay. Oh, thank you.
Renee, you probably want to hit slide presentation first before you give it to him. Go to slideshow.
Slideshow.
Here we go. Oh, sorry. Okay. So you can either push that or you can roll it and I'll scroll either way.
Okay, I'll do the push hopefully. All righty, well, I'm getting tired of looking at this picture. I want to see some movement on the site, which is going to happen here real soon. So this is where we are. We had our meeting with the special talking about budget, so this is pretty short and sweet. Increment 1 was a site grading and building pad, which resulted in that picture you just saw. That is completed, and we had some talking about carryover. We had some carryover. We didn't spend all the contingency, and that helped ease a little bit of the increment 2 budget, a little bit. I think it was over 100,000 that we carried over. At any rate, we're working with the contractor now to do the increment 2. It's not really a contract; it's an amendment to their GMP. Basically, what they're doing is they're getting their bonds insurance together and working out the language for the amendment, so we could add that to the contract that's in place, or what's called a lease back in this context. We're hoping to have that resolved. In fact, I talked to him tomorrow morning. I should have it, and we'll get it going. The intent is to start construction, get back on construction on May 2nd, which is coming up here shortly. Well, the one thing I'm working out with them, and they really haven't brought it up, but it's in the back of my mind, is when we approved to do the bus loop, we kind of threw them a curveball because after we approved it, we thought, well, we can't do the bus loop this first summer, or at least all of it. So that piece of it might have to carry over to the following summer, unless we could finesse some of the construction during school. So we're still working that out. So I think we're going to try to do 2 amendments, Amendment 2 and Amendment 3, have the bus loop as a separate item. That way they're not carrying their bonds for the whole project while we wait for permission to get back on site to do the bus loop. But that's the only wrinkle that wasn't thought of until after the bus loop got approved. And thought, oh, wait a minute, we can't do all this in the short time that we have because of school. But we're working through that. I'm the one with the button. Okay, budget-wise, Redwood Elementary, this is where we're lying. And I've got the range of how much contingency we may or may not use. If we use 100% of the contingency, we will spend $957. I don't think we'll ever get to 100%. It's going to be somewhere between using maybe 25 or 50% of the contingency, not being overly optimistic, but I know this contractor, and he's not there to goose things up. So I think we're going to have a little bit more carryover for the next phase than what I'm showing here of expending the whole 100%. This one I won't talk too much about. It's the Alt Ed. We had their special board meeting. We're going to defer this and make it phase 3 because we just don't have the funds right now to bridge that $4 million gap. Well, we talked a lot about it last time, so I'm just going to move forward. Unless there's questions. And then this is the budget for what's going to be now phase 2, which is the second half of the Redwood Elementary, doing the modernization of the existing admin and the buildings that are in front by the bus loop, which kind of complicates the bus loop. So I've got to work with the contractor and come up with their schedule on how we'll move forward with this and evaluate that the budget is valid. And the architects need a design so we could come up with an estimate and see if the budget's valid. But since the special board meeting and we switch gears and now make this phase 2, that'll be coming forward. But right now it's kind of just starting to gel. So,
That's your last slide.
and that's all I got for the slides. One advantage of having a special board meeting. I've got it in increments. So if there's any questions, I'm wide open.
Anyone have any questions?
So when are you thinking of doing construction?
May.
I'm sorry?
When are you thinking of doing construction? Sorry.
They're going to have the bonds and insurance to me tomorrow, and we're trying to get that in place and have the amendment to the lease back in place so we can start on site on May 2nd.
Great.
Yeah. Any other questions?
All righty, well, thank you. And thank you for
Thanks for coming
being
up.
so flexible. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'll see you next month.
Thank you, Don.
Thank
All
you,
righty,
Don.
thank you.
Okay, so moving on, I don't know if there was any public comment on, since we moved that down.
There is no
on
public comment.
construction.
No public comment.
Thank you. So we have superintendent search and BP 2120 under information and discussion. And I just wanted to put it on the meeting. We did put out a message to our stakeholders for their engagement during our survey time, which is part of our process to recruit and select new leadership. Due to the resignation, not that we wanted to do this, but we're charged with this duty, and it's been a heavy lift. But we really do value the input, and it will continue to prioritize what we're doing here at the board because the desire and the needs that were brought on from the survey, we were able to, craft questions for our interviews, and then hope to be able to keep all of those goals and needs through the smooth transition, just to kind of focus us, because there's so many needs in a small district and there's not a whole lot of folks. I just wanted to make sure that the public knew that the board was really thankful for the survey and for attending in-person and virtual meetings, and we wanted to provide the board policy that we're following, and it's giving us some direction on where we go next in the process. So
Was there any in attendance today? Yeah. We had
so
12. Oh, wow.
for the after school 3:30, we provided a staff virtual option, and it was tricky. We at first had thought that each of us would take our assigned site and go in the morning and in the afternoon, and then spring break, all of this, the timing has been hard. So spring break occurred, and then we were thinking, what teacher's going to be available in the morning? I know that's like a tricky time. And then picking a time that would accommodate everyone, because all the bell schedules are so different. So we ended up realizing, why don't we just do an all district staff and then be able to fit it in before we have interviews so that they can have input. And we did. We had 12 folks attend, and it was mostly K-12. But it was a good opportunity to ask questions, and everyone felt comfortable and wanted to see something like that. So maybe it's kind of spurred that maybe we'll have a 3:30 time on a board meeting day. And they felt like it was a safe place to talk. And so I don't know how that transition, because why Becky wasn't there was because it's for the superintendent search. So I just don't know how that is when you have incoming leadership. But I said that we would definitely have that conversation to see how we can maybe phase that out or keep it, as a 3:30.
Well, when
but
we said if we had some board chats, which is always a superintendent and 2 board members, having some at 3:30, they were all for it because they would like to attend. But 8:15 is impossible.
Right.
So.
Yeah, it's hard. But anyway, so I just wanted to make sure that if you didn't get the parent square or you're a community member watching, that this is where we're at in the process.
Well, that was good feedback.
Yeah, it was fun. So I don't know if anyone has if there's any public comment, or anyone else has any information or questions.
There's no public comment.
I do want to publicly thank President Paoli and Vice President Makala for all the work you guys have been doing through this. So both of you have taken this by the reins and led us through this, and I appreciate you.
Yes, I agree with that.
Thank you. I think anyone that we just happened to have raised our hand at the wrong time, because you would be charged with the heavy lifting too. But I thank you, because it's a challenge to balance everything, and staff has been really helpful, because I've called Wendy more in this last few weeks than I have in the whole 6 years, because I try not to bug staff, but this is a unique situation. We don't have our superintendent that gives us recommendations. That's our go-to. This is what I recommend. You guys can do whatever. We can't go to her for this. We're trying to keep her distance from this, because there's got to be a transition period, and you can have the option of hiring an agency to help you through this. But at this point, with the timeline, the board didn't take that on. So it leaves us in a different role that we're not used to, but we're able to lean on staff, and we'll continue to assess where we're at, and if we need outside assistance, that we can have that assistance. So thank you. So I will move on to 11.2, which is a bunch of board policy, administrative regulations, and board bylaw updates. And Renee has done a great job of maintaining our cover sheet and then providing us with the highlighted revisions and underlines and strikeouts.
And I got to look at this for the first time today, so I didn't get to do a big deep dive. But the majority of these are new laws. I didn't see anything controversial, to be quite honest with you. It was pretty straightforward. There were a few options.
There were a few options. I don't know where my notes are. Some of them are obviously options that we can't sustain. Like, we don't have horseback riding. It's unfortunate we don't have archery anymore, but we'll never have. There were some other ones that.
We don't have a swimming pool on campus.
We don't have a swimming pool on campus. There's just. I can't even remember all of. That's an option, but it's not an option for us, because we don't have the landscape for that.
So I didn't see anything controversial in here, to be quite honest with you. It's pretty straightforward, new laws, things that need to be changed,
And I think the only one, I'll just look at, I think there was the work stoppage had some options, but you'll clearly be able to look at that before we put this on action, because this is just information and discussion. There was some absences and excuse option when and if you require a doctor's note, but that's kind of already in place. So I'm not quite sure.
Our bargaining unit.
Right. So I don't know.
And that's what it referred to also.
Mm-hmm.
It could
And
be
then
part of that.
there were some options in safety, but it wasn't, I think it was something about using bug spray. That was an option. Well, I think the only time we don't offer bug spray because we don't have mosquitoes, because it's so cold here. But during a field trip, that's in the field trip. So I think, that was covered. And homeless children, there was a bunch of options in there, but I don't think that those are law changes. It's not optional,
Right.
Truly. And the agenda and meeting material, the only thing I wrote down was, I think we have our vision and mission on the agenda. Does that count for also, I think they said to put your goals on the agenda. And then there was one other.
See, and I read that as I thought, okay, do we just include the LCAP goals?
Right. That's what I'm saying. I'm wondering if that's, what do they mean by that? Because it's like a wordo thing. But we do have the vision and mission. And then there was some language on offering, we need something on the agenda that states that a person could contact staff and say they want their name eliminated from the minutes. So when you have someone writing in about, masking or no busing, that they can have, public comment that's.
They can have their
but if they were
name redacted from the minutes.
Yep. So that I think is something we don't have on our agenda now that will have to be implemented. And I think the other thing was to be able to, if someone asks for a packet, to have that available, but we're virtual. So we have we're way ahead of this policy because a lot of, believe it or not, during COVID, I had a hard time when I was looking for other districts. I couldn't find their packets. I couldn't find their agendas, you know, so we're ahead of that on our website. So there were some parameters, but so thank you for getting us ahead of that, so it's not all a heavy lift now. So any other questions or options? And this will come back to us on May 12th.
I think this was one of the least
I was a little
intriguing ones that we've had. I mean, 180 pages.
It was a fair amount. I thought,
But
oh my gosh, how am I going to
but
get through this?
No, 100, sorry.
But it did.
119.
Yeah, it was, but
Some
it
of the others have been
wasn't too, like you said, it wasn't a brain teaser, and the options were not really options.
And I love the cheat sheet form. I just
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah,
I have
thank
to
you.
tell It's
That is great.
fantastic. Don't ever let that go.
Well, that's like, yeah, it is very helpful.
That was Jerry's idea.
Good
Our
job,
Cliff
Jerry.
Notes.
Moving on, we'll see those back on May 12th. And 11.3 is the FBHS tennis court fees and procedures.
So I have corresponded with the group that sent the letter. I've been talking with them. I've been trying to research what other districts do with their tennis courts, and it's all over the map. So, and this really could have been under reports probably, but I didn't want it in action because we weren't ready. We're grappling with how to do this really. Other places say, well, yeah, we let the public use our courts, but they get pretty beat up. Well, you know, that's a problem. So I'm still reaching out to other districts to find out how they handle their tennis courts as far as their facility use arrangements. I mean, to me, it's a facility like the rest of our facilities, and there should be some protocols. So I just wasn't able to scrounge up enough information from enough places to feel comfortable bringing you a recommendation this time. So I'll try to have something for May 12th.
Right.
And there's a whole history behind this. So just know that there was an effort years ago when I was the high school principal about using the courts as well. And again, we've said the same thing, that there's a facility use, that there was an attempt to get a tennis club in place, and the objection came from having our custodians open up a bathroom, because it was a bathroom that was requested. Well, if we're going to open up a bathroom and we're going to be using the facilities and we're giving you a key to use the facilities, then there has to be someone on duty for that. And so that was one of the issues early on. And then the suggestion was, well, can we just put a porta potty out there? No. So a porta potty in the middle of the high school campus is not a good idea. I'm just going to say that on record for all to know. So so that's one thing for you to consider. I want to give you just a brief history, and I'll try and be brief. I was the principal when those tennis courts were done in their construction. The courts are beautiful. They are pristine. The PE classes use them with great care and consideration. When we first got the courts, the gates were locked, but you could use a hanger to unlatch the lock, which is what people did. So many of our community members actually brought hangers and went into the courts and used them. And the hard part was, we had to actually ask people to leave the courts during school hours, to the point where they were rude, disrespectful. So that was the first thorn in my side. Then we had a couple of moms play on the court with their kids riding their tricycles around the court. And when we asked them to leave, they took their hanger with them and left with their children. And then we had people playing on the courts during high school graduation. And it was after that time that I, as the principal, had contacted our custodian, who was David Allen at the time, and I asked him to go down to Rossi's and get bike chains to lock them up. So that's how that all happened, and that started this evolution of getting the courts to be used. So when I see a letter of the districts, the accusing the district of not letting the public use the courts, there was a reason behind it. We cannot have people on the courts during school hours. And when we were faced with rude and disrespectful people, that causes me some concern. And I believe both of you may have been on staff at the time. The other difficulty is that I will also tell you that we do have courts at the middle school. Perhaps there's something we can do to create a community campaign to get those resurfaced so that those can be usable. They are not locked up. They are open to the public, but they're not very safe. It needs to be repaved. The gravel that is so prevalent on those courts. If you're running, you're going to slip and fall. And it's not even a matter of if, it's a matter of a when. They're not safe. But perhaps we can do something to the middle school courts to make that a little bit more available.
Could we partner with the senior center?
So I tried to partner with the senior center, and God bless them. They wanted to do pickleball courts there. And so we said, hey, if you want to pay for it, go to town. It was, I thought, well, this is fantastic. The hard part was when I had the discussion with the senior center, they wanted to be able to use those courts throughout the day. And so the hard part is that we can't have people on the courts during school hours. Now, if we wanted to go out there and look at the courts and try and figure out a way so that people could use the courts while not being on campus, we could do that. But the hard part is, what happens when the PE classes want to use the courts? Do we say that the community takes precedence over a school function? So I had mentioned that there's no way that we can use those courts during the school day. And so they wanted to know when they could use the courts. Well, can we use them at 3 o'clock? Well, no, because the school day doesn't technically end till 6 o'clock because of kudos. So if the kids are out there for kudos using it, and even if they don't use it, that's the end of our day. So if we say, okay, well, what if we can make an exception and say, okay, 4:30? But the problem is, it's 180 days that has no contact because those are school days. The weekends are open, but because it's a senior center and they're seniors, they want to use them at 9.
Oh, right, or 10. So to flip in the interim, while we're trying to figure out the best procedure and fees, anyone could use well, probably not the high school because it's locked up. They don't need a facility use to use it at 5:30 or on weekends. The middle school. The middle school's open right now.
Yeah. But if someone comes on campus during the school day, we ask them to leave.
Right. Okay.
And if they don't, we call the police.
Right. But potentially this could, because the high school is always locked. Is that right? The high school is always locked. So if this fees and procedures would be implemented or decided or formulated, then a person could use the high school. I mean, is that where you're going with this?
Yes.
That they could use the high school with a facility use form to say, you're going to be there, it'd have to be on the weekend or after 5:30. I don't know if it's different for the high school. Then that's what this is working towards. So that the high school, the one that's in Prestine, that people can use that on weekends and after 5:30, because in the summertime
they would fill out a facility use form. They would provide insurance, just like we do for any other of our other facilities, and they would be able to gain access. We'd have a custodian available.
Because I think, with this issue, we just have to think about the things we can do
and just so
the parameters.
That everybody knows, at the last meeting, we had a member of the public come to the podium and threaten a lawsuit. I did contact our attorney, and she had no idea what that person was talking about. She did research it and said, it's your facility. I mean, anybody can bring forth a lawsuit. I took concern with that because as a board, I'm going to encourage you to really set a precedence on how we respond to our community. Our community is very important to us. We want to work with our community. We absolutely want to find a solution so that we can work together. I do take issue with someone coming to the podium and threatening a lawsuit if we don't do what they want to do. Because my recommendation to you, under any circumstance that is involved in that nature, is to say, you have to set the tone. That when someone threatens a lawsuit, we are not going to say, okay, you get what you want, because everybody's going to come up to the podium and threaten a lawsuit. So, and I understand that people were heated, but I did contact our legal. It's not something we need to worry about.
Okay.
And I would encourage us to look at the procedures that we have in place for facility use. And then I would also encourage us to potentially look at the middle school courts, what we can do to improve those so that we can answer the call to the community as well.
Yeah, because there's a need, and it sounds like the conversations, when it was brought to us, it wasn't brought to us. And so they did, the steps, you need to start with staff. That's who's in charge of the facility use. We aren't in charge of that. So it just sounded like that didn't even happen yet. So it was just really premature to be, that there wasn't anything in our jurisdiction. So I just want to clarify that as well.
Well, I just want to see if we can move forward with something in the middle school too, because the high school courts are beautiful and pristine, but we also, just like we've talked about with the fields, if we open up just the high school courts and they're going to get all this use, their wear and tear is going to go dramatically down. Not that but then if we could share the use on multiple facilities, then we're not talking about because we
Right.
know that the fees for facility use don't pay for the for the
Well,
maintenance.
you hope that it, yeah,
Well,
you
but,
can't
I mean,
get more
you
money,
know,
but you hope
yeah, the
that
gym
it,
floor is going to need it probably before. But anyway, so that you could spread. I just mean so the use can, because it sounds like there's a lot of people that could use it. So then it's not all coming to
Well-
the high school. Then it would be spread out and make lots of people.
and that's where
happy
you
and
might have a
not-
schedule and it, so somehow you'd have to figure out the appropriate price so that you could keep up with the usage so that it doesn't get dilapidated. But at the same time, maybe there's a cap. Maybe there's only 2 weekends out of the month, or, I don't know. I mean, you figure too, it rains here a lot and it's winter. So it's not like it's going to be, it may not be as much use as we think.
Well, and with all of our, I don't know, I think you all were here when we did the facility fee.
Yes.
Correction,
Yes.
or
Update.
adoption,
Mhm.
that everything we charge has a built-in amount that goes into a reserve for, I mean, it's never going to cover all of it, but to help with, refurbishing of facilities, so
As
there's a
far as
little
the
set
middle
aside.
school is concerned, though, there's going to be quite a bit of, those are pretty rough.
They're pretty rough.
Yes.
But, I would also tell you that maybe the happy medium is we look at what we can do as a community to raise the funds, to have them resurfaced, so that maybe that is just open to the public on the weekends with no facility use.
Mhm.
If
'Cause
it becomes a community endeavor.
Mhm.
There's no lock on those courts right now, which is why they look the way they look.
Mhm.
They've been beaten and bruised.
Yeah.
But I'd be willing, I think it would be incumbent upon us to work with our community, and maybe the solution is in the middle school.
Yeah. Well, yeah, definitely is a conversation to have. So thank you for researching this, because it is a need. And we just have to try to balance and focus on what we can do,
Well, look at
and
what
not what we can't do.
I assume it came from Mayor Norvell, but look at with the soccer field. I mean,
Sure.
that could
Right.
happen there. Something similar could maybe happen at the.
True, yeah.
Right, the middle school, because that is easily accessible from the street. So it seems like a nice location.
Well, there is one school district, I don't know if I mentioned it, that does that, has sort of a partnership with the city that helps with the refurbishing and with the,
yeah.
replacing the net
Mhm.
and keeping it up a little bit.
Mhm.
But they still get kind of beat up, but at least they have that kind of partnership where they.
Which is smart, yeah,
Very
a
smart.
dual collaboration, oversight. Okay, so we'll move on to other board reports. Does anyone have anything to report?
Well, I think you and I both attended the CSBA Legislative Action Day. That was interesting, even though Senator McGuire wasn't able to be there, but his staff was. And Jim Wood was there for his. That was good. Yep. And I attended the Three Rivers March Board meeting. And of course, we all attended all of the superintendent search stakeholder meetings.
Anything different? Yeah, we've all been preoccupied with all our charging orders. I just wanted to say that the Legislative Action Day, going around it twice, and this is the second time I've attended because it was virtual, so I appreciate that. That's a lot to do, going to Sacramento and then maybe having the staff present. But I think the topics were on point.
They were much better this year.
Yeah, it was increase the base local control funding formula, school employer pension relief, COVID ADA relief, home to school transportation, and a couple of bills that no one really knew anything about them. So that was not very mindful, because it's now coming out on the floor. So they always present these and they never know anything about them. And we often get someone that's on education committee. So that's always kind of disappointing, but in the end, we have access to these people, and it's starting to build the communication and relationships with our legislators.
And Diana and I ended up being the ones that presented on the funding, which was nice, that we could get out what we wanted to say, which one of the things Jim Wood was talking about that he was co-sponsoring a bill on a grant. And I said, you know, grants are great, except we have to have a match. And if we keep getting all these grants, we can only use match for one grant. So then pretty soon we can't even apply for the grant. So, and then of course there's all those strings on the grants. So I said, it'd be great if we had some money that we actually could do what we needed to do, as we decide. So he goes, oh, yeah, I hadn't thought about the match. He
So,
just thought about
yeah.
the grant.
Yep, so it was, in the end, I think that's meaningful.
Mhm.
And then I did see CDE had a Suicide 101 presentation about how to support family, you know, your children with emotional distress. It's not very long, but I think I haven't watched it completely, but what I got was some language to how to broach the conversation without throwing it under the rug, you know, to ask the delivery of the question to ask someone that's in that kind of emotional distress. It just had some helpful language to help, you know, broach that subject. So I think that.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Can I share that?
Can you share it?
Is
Do
it
you have
a-
access to it?
I think I could. Yeah, I will. Okay, I'll figure that out.
No rush.
Yeah, no
We
rush.
have a lot going on.
But important. No, it was good stuff. Because
It sounds good.
yeah, it's good reminders and to pause and to think about, you know, how to broach that subject to help
Mhm.
everyone heal.
Well, and thinking about the Healthy Kids Survey, and it's always alarming to see any numbers in that box.
Yes. Okay, so Trustee Babcock?
Nothing to report.
Okay, I mean, nothing to add, because
Oh,
you've
right.
been to all these
Mhm.
as well. So I think advanced planning suggestions for future meetings, I think we will proceed with our April
Workshop?
30th workshop to get our self-evaluation complete. And we do want to remind, well, actually, that's the housekeeping part. So is there anything else that I'm missing besides maybe more special meetings?
Well, I just want to mention, I liked, say it again, Becky's thought on a possible resolution for building up the reserves over time as
Okay.
possible.
Reserves, the resolution.
Yep.
Because with that gives staff the ability to do that. They could report to us, but we don't have to have that as an action. Is that right?
Well, it would need to
It
be
would
an
be an
action item.
resolution.
Right, the resolution, once the resolution's passed.
Right.
Then that allows,
It'll just help set the stage for
Mhm.
the
We
next.
just do it. It's not something we have to keep coming back to you for.
right.
It's just something
Right,
that's done.
because, and I kind of thought the policy allowed that, so,
The policy allowed it to go up to 6%.
gotcha.
And that's what we
Okay,
did.
okay, gotcha. Because I was thinking that, you know, you bring it to us, but even with the policy, you still had to bring it as an action. But with the resolution, it would happen like normal day-to-day business.
Right, and the only way, it would depend on how you wrote the resolution. 'Cause
Right.
if you said you're gonna do this up to a 12% cap or up to.
Gotcha.
Then it would stop and we'd have to start over again if we wanted to do more. So
Okay.
it would depend on how you wanna coin it.
Okay. Yep. Up and coming. And so the next agenda setting, I think is May 2nd with Mary, and our student rep is the patriotic exercise.
For the May 12th meeting?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Make sure that
And so moving on, if there's nothing else, so Renee will give Joe the heads up for patriotic exercise.
I have already
Okay.
spoken with her.
Great, thank you. We do have, which I was a little worried because it was posted, no school on April 25th. I thought, crap, now that, excuse me, now the lights are gonna go out and we're gonna have to go to school, you know, because that was the whole part of
Oh,
it.
yesterday?
Well, I think it went
When the
out
wind
on
was gusting.
Sunday. Anyway, right, like yesterday's weather, and I thought, oh no, I said, you kids are gonna lose your Monday. So, I think hopefully we'll be okay.
One more day.
Yeah, one more day. And then we have a bunch of meetings. We have an ELEC meeting at Redwood on April 26th, and I'm sure that's probably a virtual,
I think she's running all of those.
which is
virtually, yeah.
nice. And then April 28th, we've got Redwood Site Council, AP Honors Night info, 5:30 on April 28th, the junior prom, and I think it's being held at Casper Community, April 30th, and it sounds like have over 120 tickets sold, junior classes.
And just so you know, they are testing, all students have to show a negative COVID test within 24 hours of the prom.
So Friday, they could test at school?
They're testing at school on Friday, And then guest passes, the students who are coming in on guest passes, their school has to test their students, and the school person
Sends.
has to contact Jamie or Bruce.
Oh, I'm glad to hear they're allowing guests. That's great. And then May 5th, we have site council at middle school, and May 10th, Fort Bragg High School site council, and Parents Club at Dana Gray, May 10th. Also.
And the only other housekeeping thing, I know that May 12th is our next meeting, but we are going to do the FBUSD Staff Appreciation Day on May 13th. I know
Yes.
we've mentioned that before. We do it that day because there's, the month of May is like school appreciation everything. We've got CSEA Appreciation Week, we have the CTA Day of the Teacher, we have the National Day of the Teacher, we have the Administrative Assistants Day, which is next week, and then Administrative Assistants Week, which is next week. And then Jerry Lynn told me that there was Bus Driver Day, but we were looking, and we thought it was October. So I was sitting there going, Renee, can you just get me days?
Yeah.
But what I like about what we do is we honor everybody on the same day so that no one is feeling like there's more love for
Right.
one than the other. We're just trying to be the good parents. We are appreciative of all of our employees, especially with what they've been charged to do this last year. So we
Yeah.
are going to be honoring all of our Fort Bragg Unified employees on May 13th.
Okay. And also May 13th is the Mecca and College Job Fair and registration fiesta.
Nice.
So
Okay.
if anybody's looking for a job.
So the next item is adjournment, but we're going to do it a little bit differently to enable us to do some business. So the procedure is to, pursuant to Government Code Section 54955, I move to adjourn this regular meeting on April 21st, 2022 to April 23rd, 2022 at 8:30 a.m. at Fort Bragg High School, 300 Dana Street, to consider items 2.1 and 2.2 on the agenda for today's meeting. So if there's no public comment, I don't know if there would be any public comment on this, but I will need a second for that motion.
I'll second.
So with Mary seconding the motion, I believe we have to take a vote, because this is a little bit different. It says to vote, so we'll be doing roll call.
Trustee Schneider,
Yes.
Trustee Mattson,
Yes.
President Paoli,
Yes.
Trustee Makala,
Yes.
Trustee Babcock.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, so the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees, Fort Bragg Unified School District, stands adjourned until April 23rd, 2022. And then, as a procedural, then Renee will post a notice to show that within 24 hours, that they will post this meeting adjourned, this, that we're reconvening the adjournment of the regular meeting on Saturday at 8:30. So that'll be posted. And